Chapter 840. A huge, hazy figure towered above the golden boulder. Nalan Ryu surveyed the entire audience and listened to the cheers and shouts of the audience. Her magnificent and dazzling eyes shone, and her light blue hair fluttered in the wind. She was filled with the joy of a victor. The former had been defeated by his hands. The huge, hazy figure looked down at Sui. Nalan Ryu sneered and did not say anything. Her huge figure stomped on the ground, and an invisible energy wave swept out along the golden boulder. If this golden boulder had not been set up by the experts of various forces, it would have been turned into dust. Sui's face was extremely solemn. The invisible force was simply unstoppable. Quickly, the yuan qi behind his back condensed into a pair of wings, and his figure leaped back into the air. Puff! But under the impact of the terrifying invisible force, Sui could not help but feel the blood in his body churning again, and a mouthful of blood spilled from his mouth. Humph! With a cold snort from the void above, a huge handprint seemed to have been prepared. It directly covered the entire golden boulder, and its aura was surging. Sui sensed it, but at this moment it was simply impossible to avoid. His expression changed greatly, and a yuan qi halo enveloped him. Boom! The handprint fell, and in the midst of the muffled sound, Sui's figure was like a cannonball, directly smashing into the ground, and the impact shook the golden boulder. The yuan qi light shield around Sui's body crumbled inch by inch. The wings formed from the yuan qi of the rising Yao Hunter transformation steps were also shattered. Pucci! Large mouthfuls of blood spurted out from Sui's mouth. His hair was disheveled, and his body was cracked. As Sui's figure fell again, the atmosphere was tense, and countless eyes were trembling with fear. Boss! Su Xiaoshui stood on Merciless West's shoulder. At this moment, he raised his head, and his eyes suddenly became solemn, and his pupils constricted. Look at the original V version of the chapter. Go! DZ Sui fell, and the remaining yuan qi in his body rapidly surged. His figure was about to jump up and retreat. Boom! However, it was already too late. Nalan Ryu did not hold back anymore. Her 5 fingers curled slightly and directly pressed down. This handprint seemed to distort the void, bringing with it a surging divine aura. It slammed Sui directly onto the golden boulder, suppressing him. Pucci! Sui's body, which had just leaped up, was lying on a golden boulder. Large mouthfuls of blood flowed out from his mouth. His body was covered in wounds, and blood kept flowing out. His whole body was covered in blood. No! Situ Myung, Ryugan River, Oluo, Sakura, Asaka, Gongqi, Jianxi, and the others felt their hearts skip a beat as their hearts tightened. Sui, hold on. Many people in the audience exclaimed and gasped for Sui. Within the Sacred Mountains lineup, the elders and experts were completely relieved. However, no one felt happy at this moment. Sui could fight with Nalan Ryu to such an extent. Everyone knew that if they were at the same cultivation level, it was easy to imagine who would win and who would lose. Only Wang Chuanda and Kwang Guilin had incomparable expectations in their eyes. They hoped that Nalan Ryu could directly kill Sui. Nalan Ryu's huge body slightly squatted on one knee. Her giant hand pressed down, twisting the void and crushing Sui onto the golden boulder. That huge, hazy figure was like a god, suppressing Sui. Her eyes emitted a dazzling light, and an indifferent voice came from her mouth. You have already lost. What else do you have to compete with me now? But I can give you one more chance. Kowtow 3 times, and from then on be my follower. I can make you admit defeat, and one day you will have the chance to roam the world. Otherwise, your soul will scatter now. This is your last chance. Word by word, Nalan Ryu's voice resounded through the sky, mighty and mighty. This was Nalan Ryu's pride. If he could subdue Sui as his follower, then all the previous losses would be washed away. If he could really subdue Sui as his follower, then Nalan Ryu would be the most dazzling existence in the history of the Sacred Martial Assembly. It would be the first time in the history of the Sacred Martial Assembly that the champion of the Sacred Martial Assembly had subdued the runner-up as his follower. But if the former did not submit, then she would be killed on the spot. Su-Yi's strength made Naren Ryu wary. Not to mention the humiliation Su-Yi brought to the Sacred Mountain and himself. If he lost this opportunity, Naren Ryu had a faint feeling in his heart that he would not be able to deal with this brat the next time they met. Naren Ryu's eyes were like two dazzling suns as he waited. Killing intent and anticipation coexisted in his eyes. His divine aura was rolling and collapsing as he stared at Su-Yi as if he was looking at an ant. Su-Yi was suppressed, unable to move. Only blood was flowing from his body, but his eyes were looking up at the huge figure that was looking down at him, surging with scarlet light. Su-Yi has been defeated. Will he surrender? Countless eyes trembled, and their pupils constricted. Su-Yi represented all the major sects, and if Su-Yi surrendered at this moment and became a follower, it would be a huge blow to many people, especially countless young people. He has been defeated. Only death awaits him if he doesn't surrender. Someone sighed. It was obvious that Su-Yi had been defeated at this point. At this moment, Su-Yi would die if he did not surrender. He had no other choice. What else could he do? Naren Ryu is invincible. The saint is unparalleled, invincible everywhere. Many people raised their arms and cheered. After all, Naren Ryu, whom they supported, was invincible. She was an undefeatable existence. In Shenzhen Gate, in Yuqin Palace, many experts were frowning, their eyes solemn. Old Man Gyue and Suruga's eyes flashed, knowing that Sacred Mountain would not let this go so easily. If Naren Ryu had any assassins, they would immediately stop them. No matter what, Su-Yi cannot be harmed. Humph! Bing Fu sneered and secretly transmitted his voice to the elders of Sacred Mountain. He knew that something might happen to the people of Yuqin Palace. They had to be wary of Yuqin Palace and even Shenzhen Gate. Once that brat became Naren Ryu's servant, they had to eliminate this potential threat to Sacred Mountain. However, Bing Fu was also looking forward to it. If Su-Yi was willing to become Naren Ryu's servant, it would be the same as returning to Sacred Mountain. It would be a great gain, and the loss of Chu Zhonghuan, Imo Beiming, and the other disciples would be more than enough to make up for it. Junior Martial Uncle, hold on. Su-Yi, hold on. In the crowd, Situ Myong, Ryugan River, and the others clenched their fists. Sakura, Asaka, Gongqi, and Mu Yao's eyes flashed with light, their heartstrings tense. This is your last chance. Naren Ryu looked down at Su-Yi. His huge and hazy body was like a deity. His divine aura surged as he regained his arrogance, staring at Su-Yi. If he didn't submit, he would kill him to prevent future troubles. He said word by word, 3, 2, you're not qualified to be your servant. Chapter 841. If that's the case, then murderous intent gushed out from his eyes. Naren Ryu did not hide his murderous intent. Since he could not use him, he could only kill him. Suddenly, Naren Ryu seemed to have sensed something, and the look in her eyes changed greatly. At the same time, the Suruga Elder and Elder Gyue were about to move, but they also felt something, and their figure stopped. Whoosh! A bright scarlet light, like a scarlet thunderbolt, shot out from between Su-Yi's eyebrows with the force of a thunderbolt. No one knew that at this moment, in Su-Yi's mind, in the Sea of Soul, the red light fluctuated like a small sun. It was bright and dazzling, and it emitted bursts of wind and thunder, as if it came from ancient times. When this red light appeared, it rushed straight to Naren Ryu's forehead. A domineering and majestic aura that could suppress ancient times and look down on heaven and earth rushed out. In an instant, the red light was as bright as the sun. It was as if a mysterious power had crossed time and space and descended from ancient times. Naren Ryu's eyes suddenly surged with shock, and his expression changed drastically. This was the most direct soul attack, and even he could not ignore it. His saint ruler Qi could suppress souls, and it was enough to make any soul controller wary. However, Naren Ryu did not expect that Su-E, who was suppressed under such circumstances, would not be affected by the soul in his mind, and could even use a soul attack on him. This was completely beyond his expectations. If that terrifying soul pressure was directly swept away, it was not difficult for Naren Ryu to imagine that the consequences would be serious. This kid's soul power was too strange and powerful. Swish! Naren Ryu did not care about Su-E, and his hazy figure quickly retreated. The sudden scene changed the color of everyone's faces. At this moment, Su-E quickly rushed up and sat down cross-legged. Handprints were constantly condensing, and between his eyebrows, a red light spread out, and there was a great pressure, accompanied by destruction and majesty, spreading out at the same time. Boom! Above the golden boulder, layers of red light were like waves in the sea, surging and surging in the distance. At this moment, it was as if a mysterious power had descended from ancient times, and there were bursts of thunder in the depths of the void. Above the golden boulder, a monstrous light burst out in an instant, and the sound of a beast's roar was like thunder. Roar, boom! At the same time, the entire world was trembling, and the mountains were shaking. The mountains and the thousands of peaks were in the dark for no reason, and thick dark clouds covered the sky. Beezy! From the depths of the dark clouds, flashes of lightning could be faintly seen. Rumbling sounds of thunder could be heard from the depths of the dark clouds. In an instant, a terrifying commotion enveloped the entire mountain range, shaking the heaven and earth. Asterisk DF genuine asterisk J first O'Hare the sky as if it was rumbling sound, as if it was a rumbling sound, as if the entire world, as if it the sky, it rumble, the sound. B for no reason, for no, it to ins to, it to the twos to s. Under the vast aura, people could feel the depths of their souls trembling. What's going on? At this moment, countless onlookers were dumbfounded. This scene was too terrifying, and the world was changing color. Phenomenon. This is a phenomenon of heaven and earth. It happened once in Zhongzhou City. Soul pressure. What a powerful soul pressure. Countless eyes were stunned, and all of them were aghast. Under the terrifying soul pressure, some people remembered that such a phenomenon had happened once in Zhongzhou City not long ago. Among the various sects, Elder Gua, Vice Palace Master Wanlan, Vice Palace Master Yunding, Vice Palace Master Yen Lu, Blue Cloud Sect's Elder Su Yun, Xinjiang Gates by Mingshan, and Heavenly Mystery Sect Jin Wanyan knew that this was the movement of a heaven-ranked soul, and it came from Sui. Rumble, the vast square rumbled, dark clouds rolled, and lightning shuttled back and forth. Suddenly, from the depths of the void, dark clouds roiled, and lightning shuttled back and forth. Vicious beast phantoms suddenly appeared, roaring like thunder. And azure dragon phantoms crossed the sky, soaring into the 9 provinces, as if they had passed through the archaic era and descended into the present world. A divine sparrow phantoms spread their wings for several days, gorgeous and gorgeous. They were enormous, covering half the heavens, and raging flames dyed the world. A white tiger roared, about to pounce, as if it wanted to tear apart the world and descend from the archaic era. A black tortoise entrenched itself, and a tortoise and snake intersected, supporting the heavens and spanning the heavens. This aura was too terrifying, making people's souls tremble and their hearts tremble. This was too shocking. There was an azure dragon, a white tiger, a divine sparrow, and a black tortoise. It was as if a corner of the archaic era had appeared in the present world. Heaven and earth were shaking, and the winds and clouds were surging. The entire vast sky above shook violently. Dark clouds roiled, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. Divine birds weaved through the heavens, and divine beasts looked down on the heavens. An incomparably terrifying aura descended, blurring the entire world. Everyone's hearts trembled, and they knelt down in worship. This aura was too terrifying, and no one could resist it. Naren Ryu's hazy and enormous figure retreated, and there was shock in the depths of its eyes. That terrifying aura also made his heart tremble. This is soul pressure. Su, he has a heaven-grade soul quality. In an entire mountain range, countless people raised their eyes and cried out in alarm. Above the void, the winds and clouds surged, and the heavens and earth changed color. The terrifying pressure was impressive, making all living beings want to prostrate themselves in worship. What a strong soul pressure! I can't resist it. Under such a terrifying soul pressure, those who were closer to it couldn't help but feel their legs go soft. This was a soul pressure that made their legs go soft, and they knelt on the ground. 1, 2, 3. Suddenly, figures knelt down one after another, their eyes filled with fear. Is this the legendary heaven-grade soul pressure? In the various major forces, the experts couldn't help but cry out in alarm. They were so shocked that they couldn't continue. They had all heard that Su Yi had a heaven-grade soul quality. This kind of power was too terrifying, and it made everyone dumbfounded to the extreme. I knew it. Su, you must have a trump card. Su, he hasn't lost. He still has a trump card and a heaven-grade soul. Su, countless eyes that were holding their breaths to support Su Yi were now deeply shocked and excited. They couldn't calm down, and in an instant, they raised their arms and cheered, their voices soaring to the heavens. On the golden boulder, Su Yi sat cross-legged, and the light around his body fluctuated like a divine ring, exuding an incomparably domineering and destructive aura. Under the attentive gazes of the crowd, Su Yi's body was enveloped by a divine ring of light. It made everyone feel as if they were facing a sovereign. That terrifying spiritual pressure made it seem as if he was the ruler of this world. This was a soul pressure, and it had nothing to do with cultivation. At this moment, the experts present were deathly pale, and their souls were trembling. What a terrifying soul pressure. Chapter 842. This pressure was irresistible and came from the depths of the soul. Ku. The sound pierced through the clouds and cracked the stones. In the depths of the monstrous light, countless rays of light intertwined as if they were devouring each other. Even the azure dragon and white tiger phantoms were affected. Soon, when the azure dragon and white tiger phantoms disappeared, the radiance became even more dazzling. Under the monstrous pressure, a huge black, ferocious bird phantoms surged out like dark clouds. At the same time, a monstrous soul pressure rushed out from the ninth heaven, causing the entire vast square to tremble. The ferocious bird spread its wings and covered the sky. Its body was pitch black, and its eyes were blazing like the sun. Its feathers were like blades, emitting a faint black light. Black Sky Demon Rock, someone exclaimed. It was the Black Sky Demon Rock's phantoms, a great demon of the demon clan. At this moment, the Black Sky Demon Rock was like a living creature with monstrous soul pressure. It actually attracted the Black Sky Demon Rock's remnant soul. This aura is actually so powerful. I'm afraid that even a mid-tier third-grade soul controller doesn't have such a powerful soul power. Many experts were shocked. Attracting the Black Sky Demon Rock's remnant soul, that kind of power was something that even a mid-tier third-grade soul controller couldn't compare with. Soul controllers, alchemists, and blacksmiths were slightly different from the martial artist level. Although soul controllers were related to martial artists, the level of a soul controller was more related to the soul level, from the 1st grade to the 7th grade, not to mention the 7th grade soul controllers, alchemists, and blacksmiths only existed in legends. No one knew if they existed in this world. A 5th grade soul controller was already rare. As for the beginner tier 3 soul tamers, most of them were around the Yuanjun stage. As for the 3rd grade soul controllers, their cultivation was probably above the 5th or 6th grade of Yuanjun realm. As for the 3rd grade soul controllers, their cultivation was usually above the Origin Void realm. Without the cultivation above the Origin Void realm, it was impossible for one's soul power to reach the 3rd grade soul controller level. Even many Origin Void Realm Soul controllers couldn't reach the third-grade Soul controller level. However, at this moment, the remnant souls that Su-Yi had summoned had a frightening aura. Even the souls of ordinary Tier 3 Soul controllers could not compare to them. Everyone could not help but feel shocked. It was inconceivable that a 9th-level Origin Spirit Realm practitioner would possess such a powerful spiritual force. Perhaps this was the terror of the heaven-grade spiritual force. What a powerful aura. Su-Yi is also a soul controller. He really is a soul controller. In the Xinjiang Gate, Elder Mei Huaya was so excited that he danced with joy in front of the excited and trembling eyes. Back at the Myriad Sword Conference at Xinjiang Gate, Su-Yi didn't reveal his identity as a soul controller. It was said that Isu was tested to be a heaven-ranked soul master at Drive Heavenly Palace. Isu was Su-Yi, and now it was confirmed that this brat was indeed a soul controller. This brat really hid himself well. Elder Duan Yuerong was also incredibly excited. She had never imagined that Su-Yi was also a soul controller, and a legendary Heaven Tier 1 at that. On the other hand, the Suruga Elder was much calmer, and his gaze was still fixed on the scene. The Phantom of the Dark Sky rock appeared, and with a roar, it spread its wings and soared into the sky, bringing with it a terrifying aura as it swept towards Naren Ryu. Is this your final struggle? It's useless. The shock in Naren Ryu's eyes was immediately replaced by an even more dazzling divine light. How could he not be angry when the cooked meat flew away again? After being unable to do anything to Su-Yi time and time again, Naren Ryu's killing intent completely surged. His aura erupted, shaking the void, and with an aura that could sweep across all directions, the massive, hazy phantom collided with the Phantom of the Dark Sky rock. The collision of the two colossal phantoms shook the surrounding void, and a misty glow gushed out. A terrifying aura swept out from the point of collision, as if it wanted to destroy everything. On the golden boulder, Su-Yi was still sitting cross-legged. His crimson eyes had quietly closed, and crimson yuan qi light enveloped the surroundings. Now, what is Su-Yi doing? Some people were surprised. At this moment, Su-Yi's eyes were tightly closed, as if he had forgotten that he was still fighting with Naren Ryu. No, Isu's aura seems to be a bit off. Some experts felt that something was amiss. At this moment, there was an abnormal aura fluctuating within Su-Yi's body, who was sitting cross-legged. His aura is actually rising. Soon, some people felt that the aura around Su-Yi, who was sitting cross-legged on the golden boulder, was rising in a straight line. His aura was indeed rising. At this moment, facing Naren Ryu, who was at level 5 Yuanjin realm, Su-Yi knew that his current methods as a soul controller were not enough to deal with the former, and he would not even be able to hold her off for long. Moreover, the Sacred Martial Arts Assembly did not allow the use of any external forces. Su-Yi had the broken sword and the starry soul, and it would be difficult for him to use them. Moreover, even if he used the starry soul, Su-Yi estimated that he might not be able to deal with Naren Ryu. With his current consumption, he might not even be able to use the starry soul, which had not been restored. As for the broken sword, it was even more difficult. Su-Yi did not even know if the broken sword was reliable. The only thing that Su-Yi could think of at this moment was to take a risk. The huge amount of energy from the 2 dragon crystal fruits in his body still existed in the depths of his body. If he could refine the remaining energy of the dragon crystal fruits in his body, he could continue to forge the great void divine ocean, or even forge it several times consecutively like last time. He could completely cultivate the great void divine ocean in one fell swoop and step into the Yuanjin realm. Then, he might stand a chance against Naren Ryu. However, if he did not succeed, or even failed to forge the great void divine ocean, the consequences would be unimaginable. Forging the great void divine ocean was dangerous, and there were too many unforeseen circumstances in the midst of a battle. This was a huge risk. Su-Yi did not have time to hesitate. The difference in cultivation was too big, and he could only seek victory in the midst of danger. Sitting cross-legged, Su Yi activated the remaining energy of the dragon crystal fruits in his body and completely released it. It rushed through his body, causing a burning sensation to surge from the inside out. This burning sensation was nothing. After all, Su Yi had already endured the surging energy of the dragon crystal fruits last time. However, this kind of impact was still somewhat unbearable for Su Yi. It was a kind of torture. Forcefully enduring the pain in his body and completely releasing the energy of the dragon crystal fruits in his body, Su Yi's face twitched ferociously. He activated the Origin Supreme technique and refined the remaining energy of the dragon crystal fruits into pure vitality under the refinement of the Origin Supreme technique. This kind of refinement was done by Su Yi with all his might. Fortunately, the meridians and acupoints in Su Yi's body were extremely tough. Otherwise, an ordinary cultivator of the same cultivation base would have been killed by him. Halala. Chapter 843. After repeated battles, Su Yi's Dantian Qi Sea, which was already close to being dried up, was now flooded with an endless stream of pure Yuan Qi. Instantly, it began to emit a hazy glow, giving off a sparkling spiritual glow. Quick, I have to be quick. Su Yi urged himself to refine the dragon crystal fruit's energy within his body to the greatest extent possible, releasing it completely. Time was of the essence. Su Yi knew that with the means of a soul controller, he would not be able to hold off Naren Ryu for too long. His meridians and acupoints pulsed, as waves of energy coursed through them like a torrential flood. If anyone could peer into Su Yi's body at this moment, they would be dumbfounded. This was simply playing with one's life, playing with one's own life. Forcefully enduring the pain within his body, Su Yi's aura began to slowly rise. Outside the crimson Yuan Qi barrier, the energy of heaven and earth began to fluctuate and draw in. That Su Yi seems to be about to break through. In the arena, there were experts who were dumbfounded. In the midst of this battle, Su Yi was actually breaking through. His aura at the peak of 9th level Origin Spirit Realm was rising. That brat is really daring. The experts present were shocked, and their hearts could not help but fluctuate. Not to mention that this was an intense battle with Naren Ryu. Even if it was a normal breakthrough, no one would dare to be careless, and would find a secluded place to go into seclusion. In the midst of a breakthrough, any disturbances were enough to cause huge consequences. If it was light, all previous efforts would be wasted. If it was heavy, one would go berserk or even directly cripple oneself. But now, in such a battle, Su Yi actually chose to break through. How could this not shock everyone? If these experts knew that Su Yi was not only trying to break through, but was also trying to forge the great void spirit ocean, who knew how they would feel? Su Yi has no other choice. There is still a gap between him and Naren Ryu. If he wants to step into the true Yuan stage, he still has a chance to fight with Naren Ryu. There were also experts who had sharp eyes, and their hearts were stirred. They knew that Su Yi had no other choice. Only by taking such a risk could he have a chance to fight with Naren Ryu. Elder Suga, Elder Mei Hoye, Elder Duan Yurong, Elder Yue, Deputy Guanlon, Merciless West, Green Emperor, and many others. Of experts, is this guy trying to take a risk? Only Su Chen's eyes shone brightly. He knew exactly what Su Yi was planning. He had personally witnessed it, and everything happened very quickly. The aura on Su Yi's body shot up to a certain peak like a rocket. Rumble. The surging Yuan Qi in the Dantian Yuan Qi whirlpool made a rumbling sound, as if it was about to collapse and expand in Su Yi's Yuan Qi whirlpool, creating a vacuum. Crash! In that instant, the surrounding Yuan Qi around the golden boulder surged and poured into Su Yi's body. He's really going to break through. At this moment, all the gazes in the audience had already understood what was going on. All of them revealed looks of astonishment and shock. In this intense battle with Naren Ryu, Su Yi was really going to break through on the spot. Too powerful. How insane. Breaking through from the essence spirit stage to the essence reality stage was the dream of all essence spirit stage experts, but many of them could not break through. However, at this moment, he was actually able to break through as he wished in such an occasion. This caused everyone to be shocked, who knew how many people had awkward expressions on their faces at this moment. Indeed, comparisons were odious. Everyone thought that he was about to break through and step into the essence reality stage. He was currently at the peak of the 9th level of the essence spirit stage. But he did not break through. He circulated the origin supreme technique, forcefully isolating the yuan qi that was pouring into his dantian yuan qi whirlpool. He guided the incoming yuan qi into his dantian yuan qi whirlpool for refinement. Look at Original Edition, Chapter Q. Buzz. In that instant, a rumbling sound came from Su Yi's dantian yuan qi whirlpool. A huge stopping and rebounding force surged out, causing Su Yi's entire body to tremble. Even his soul was trembling. He was all too familiar with this. But compared to the previous 7 times, this time it was much stronger. The cultivation of the great void spirit sea was more dangerous and difficult each time. The blood in his body surged. He was on the verge of vomiting blood, almost losing his pillar of support. Fortunately, the previous 7 times of tempering in the great void spirit sea gave He plenty of experience, allowing He to hold on. He circulated the origin supreme technique, gathering the yuan qi that was pouring into his body and rushing it into his dantian yuan qi whirlpool. In that instant, the yuan qi whirlpool in Su Yi's dantian yuan qi whirlpool let out a roar, as if 10,000 beasts were galloping, trying to tear the dantian qi whirlpool apart. Large beads of cold sweat flowed down Su Yi's forehead. His body twitched, veins popped out on his face, making him look even more ferocious. This was self-abuse. It was extremely painful and not something an ordinary person could endure. Rumbling sounds came from within his body. The Origin Supreme technique circulated, and a mysterious force surged out from Su Yi's dantian yuan qi whirlpool, guiding the yuan qi to spread out. This process was very dangerous, but it was also a mysterious and overbearing tempering method. By guiding the energy of heaven and earth into various parts of the origin chi vortex, condensing and tempering it in 1,000 ways, there would be unimaginable benefits in the end. Now, what's that kid doing? Isn't he breaking through? He seems to be forcefully stopping the breakthrough. What is he trying to do? Is he trying to go berserk? Su Yi's actions caused everyone to be shocked. In the Xinjiang Gate, Elder Duan Yuerong, Elder Mei Huaye, and Deputy Palace Master Guanlan of the Yutian Palace looked at each other. Naren Ruyu, who was on the Golden Boulder, had been paying attention. However, the terrifying Xian Tian Demon Rock covered the void and attacked continuously. Coupled with the soul attack, it was impossible for him to escape. Bastard. For some reason, Naren Ryu had a bad premonition. Unknowingly, a sense of uneasiness surged from the depths of his soul. His state of mind started to become impetuous. Forcibly suppressing this uneasiness, Naren Ryu moved violently. His divine aura surged, and he wanted to blast the Xiantian Demon Rock's shadow apart. Faster, faster. So he was in a split state. He was connected to the Xiantian Demon Rock and felt Naren Ryu's attack. He shouted in his heart. Sitting cross-legged, his face was still ferocious. His body trembled, and he tried his best to temper the yuan qi whirlpool in his body. Rumble. Success. The 8th tempering of the Great Void Divine Sea was a success. The energy of the 2 dragon crystal fruits was greatly depleted last time, but it was still surging. When Su Yi's 8th tempering of the Great Void Divine Sea had just calmed down, the remaining energy of the dragon crystal fruits in his body surged again. Chapter 844. The peak of the 9th level of the Origin Spirit Realm was just 1 step away from the Yuan Jin stage. The energy of heaven and earth surged into Su Yi's body in an attempt to break through the final bottleneck. This is the last time, hurry. He sat cross-legged with his eyes closed, but he was extremely anxious. He had yet to break through, so he continued to guide the energy of heaven and earth to refine the Yuan Qi vortex in his dantian. This was the 9th time, and also the last time he would refine the Yuan Qi vortex in his dantian. What is this kid trying to do? Is he trying to play himself to death? This is too strange. What is this kid trying to do? Countless eyes were filled with astonishment. Many of the experts from the 5 sects and 3 factions could not help but stand up in astonishment. Everyone stared at Su-Yi as if they had seen a ghost. They really did not know what Su-Yi was trying to do. Su-Yi could have broken through, but he had forcefully stopped it the first time, and now he was doing the same for the second time. 2 chances to step into the Yuanjin stage, but Su-Yi had forcefully stopped it and stopped it. This was really incomprehensible. He has not broken through to the Yuanjin stage, but the aura on his body has become much stronger. This should be some kind of secret technique. Amidst the shock, there were also some experts whose eyes were filled with astonishment. Some of the experts with keen eyesight could sense that after Su-Yi had forcefully stopped his breakthrough, the aura on his body had become much stronger than before. This could be some kind of secret technique he was cultivating. BYQW Original Version L Premier *_ Naren Ryu also felt it. Standing on the golden boulder, she could clearly sense the strange movement on Su-Yi's body. The uneasiness that she had been suppressing in the depths of her heart and soul surged once again. Holy statue of purification, Naren Ryu shouted. A strange vortex appeared in the eyes of her hazy figure, and an even more dazzling light flashed. In an instant, the space around Naren Ryu was filled with layers of spatial ripples. Deafening clanging noises could be heard from the ripples. Whoosh! The holy light was hazy and surging like a torrential flood. Boom! The surroundings of Naren Ryu's gigantic and hazy body seemed to form a separate world. Light shone brightly, blurring the entire golden boulder. The profound sky demon rock's shadow was trapped, and it was immediately bound. Invisibly, the energy of heaven and earth surged, and killing intent poured out in torrents. It appeared withered and desolate, as if it wanted to obliterate everything. World cleansing, sacrifice, annihilation. Naren Ryu's roar was like thunder, causing the void to tremble. The entire plaza shook violently as the energy of the world surged into it. Even the energy of the world within Su-Yi's body, which was pouring into the golden boulder, was affected. A vast and mighty aura filled the air. Lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled in the sky. It was as if the world was trembling. The wind blew, and the clouds surged as dark clouds rolled. A terrifying divine aura spread out, as if it was going to purify everything. It caused people to feel desolation in their hearts from afar. They were unable to resist and were willing to give up. Naren Ryu has actually reached such a terrifying level, as expected of the Saint Mountain. He's terrifyingly powerful. All the experts present were dumbfounded. They felt a chill run down their spines. Naren Ryu was actually powerful to such an extent. The Saint Monarch Chi has been cultivated to such a level. It's amazing. Elder Gyue's eyes trembled. The Saint Mountain was able to stand tall and was the strongest force in the central state because of the terrifying Saint Monarch Chi. The fact that Naren Ryu was able to cultivate the Saint Monarch Chi to such a level was not an ordinary kind of shocking. The profound sky demon rock was violently colliding, trying to break free from the bindings. A terrifying pressure filled the air, and the scene was equally terrifying. The two of them kept colliding in the void above, and a thunderous sound erupted. Resplendent light rain poured down continuously, as dazzling as fireworks. The profound sky demon rock was very strong, but it showed signs of insufficient strength. It was getting weaker and weaker, and its shadow was getting more and more hazy. Not good. Sui can't hold on anymore. He's distracted. It seems that he wants to break through and can't multitask. It's greatly affecting him. Many people exclaimed. They could see that Su Yi's profound sky demon rock shadow was gradually being obliterated. It could not hold on any longer. Destroy. Naren Ryu's roar was like thunder. His eyes were surging with rage and killing intent. A huge palm print shot out as if it was going to distort the void. The light of the palm print expanded in the wind and directly hit the profound sky demon rock's weakened shadow. A rain of light poured down, and the profound sky demon rock's shadow completely disappeared. Not good. At this moment, countless eyes trembled. Countless hearts were so tense that they seemed to have stopped beating. Let's purify together. The huge hazy shadow looked down at Sui. Naren Ryu's palm print was formed, and from the hazy divine aura above the void, a dazzling saber light swept out, whistling down with dazzling divine light. Wherever the saber radiance of the divine light passed, cracks began to appear on the hard golden boulders below. The wind blew and the clouds surged as the saber radiance enveloped Su Yi's entire body. Boom! The saber light fell like a bolt of lightning into the surging energy of heaven and earth around Su Yi. Suddenly, a thunderous crash exploded from the golden boulder. Suddenly, the entire golden boulder became blurry and chaotic as the energy of heaven and earth collapsed and surged. Countless streams of energy swept up into the sky and spread into the distance, causing chaos all around. That terrifying aura even made some of the spectators who were far away from the square feel their hearts palpitate. The saber light was too powerful, as if it could cut through everything. It directly cut through the energy of heaven and earth above Su Yi's head. Then, the saber light fell, and everything became chaotic. Everything happened too fast. Old Man Gyue, Vice Palace Master Guanlan, Merciless West, and the Suruga Elder were still in shock. Countless spectators suddenly tensed up. Many of them knew that when the saber light fell, even an ordinary LV8 or LV9 Yuan Jin stage cultivator might not be able to withstand it. Moreover, Su Yi seemed to be in the middle of a strange breakthrough and had not succeeded. This time, even if he did not die, he would suffer from chi deviation. This is the true strength of the sacred mountain's chosen son. Kwang Guilon laughed coldly. Looking at the chaos and blur on the golden boulder, that kid was dead for sure. It's best if he is killed on the spot. In Xinjian Gate's lineup, Elder by Mingshan's eyes were cold. If Su Yi was killed by Naren Ryu, then his disciple Yun Lingfeng would still be the number one of the younger generation in Xinjian Gate. His disciple Yun Lingfeng had the Patriarch's inheritance and the Saint weapon. In the future, even Mu Yao and Jian Wuk would not be able to compare. Young martial uncle. Situ Muyang frowned. His voice was hoarse, and his fists were clenched tightly. Is he really not a match? Chapter 845. On the other hand, although Gong Qi's brows were slightly furrowed, her eyes were filled with anticipation and hope as she stared at the blurry area on the golden boulder. Light flickered in the depths of her eyes as she clenched her fists slightly. She seemed very nervous as she said calmly, "Why do I feel that Su Yi, that lecher, won't be defeated so easily? Even Mu Yao couldn't defeat him back then. I'm afraid that Naren Ryu won't be able to defeat him so easily." Hearing Gong Qi's words, the eyes of Sakura, Asaka, Jin Shi, and Situ Muyang immediately trembled. They couldn't help but feel hopeful as they stared fixedly at the golden boulder. Back at the Myriad Sword Conference, the gap between Su Yi and Mu Yao was still so huge. Even the golden winged rock that Mu Yao transformed into in the end was defeated by Su Yi. However, how could Jian Shi and the others not understand that Naren Ryu was an existence that was even stronger than Mu Yao? Unless a miracle happened and Su Yi still had an abnormal trump card. The entire place was silent. All the clamor returned to silence. It was a deathly silence. Only the sound of energy spreading from the golden boulder could be heard. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the golden boulder. They all wanted to know if a miracle would happen again. Would Su-yi be able to withstand Naren Ryu's terrifying attack? Even the supporters of Naren Ryu held their breaths as they waited. Su-yi was too shocking. He used his trump card again and again. It was too much for the eyes to take in. At this moment, they didn't dare to be absolutely sure that Su-yi would definitely be defeated. However, they all thought that it was impossible for Su-yi to not be defeated. This time, even if he didn't die, he would go mad. Otherwise, it would be too abnormal. In the vast square filled with cracks, Mu Yao, Li Qingwei, and Shen Yinhuan all stared unblinkingly at the golden boulder as if they were waiting for something. Bing Cauldron, Wang Chuanda, and the others all stared at the golden boulder. How is this possible? Suddenly, Bing Cauldron's expression changed drastically. His face was filled with disbelief and shock. As Bing Cauldron's voice fell, the energy on the golden boulder gradually dissipated and blurry vision returned. Under the gazes of countless people, a dazzling figure of light vaguely appeared. When she saw that figure, Naren Ryu's eyes directly trembled violently. A sense of uneasiness and a sense of collapse. The dazzling light slowly, in the blurry vision, heaven and earth energy ripples in the surroundings. When the figure rose to a low altitude and came face to face with Naren Ryu's colossal figure, it finally appeared before everyone's eyes. When she saw the figure before her, Naren Ryu's huge, dazzling eyes could not help but become filled with fear for no reason. Under countless gazes, the heaven and earth energy around the dazzling figure slowly dispersed. A pair of scarlet wings flapped on his back. His clothes were ragged and his hair was disheveled. However, his exposed skin was translucent and shone with scarlet light. What was even stranger was that the figure's cracked and bleeding body had now recovered completely, giving off a feeling of being full and untainted. Su-yi stood there silently with his eyes closed and his wings shimmering with scarlet light. As a result, when everyone raised their eyes to look at the young man, they all shivered inside and felt a chill run down their spines. They could not help but feel an indescribable feeling of goosebumps. Good boy. In the Xinjiang Gate, Elder Duan Yuerong, Elder Mei Huaya, Vice Palace Master Guanlan of the Imperial Palace, and Merciless West of the Imperial Palace were all trembling and beaming with joy. Boss is definitely fine. Su Xiaoshuai's eyes rolled around in his little head. He seemed very confident, and the solemn look in his eyes disappeared quietly. That's insane. He's actually fine. In the 5 sects, 3 groups, and other major forces, the experts and elders could not help but be moved and their eyes trembled. He's fine. He's really fine. Situ Myong, Ryugan River, Oluo, Gongchi, Sakura, Osaka, and the others clenched their fists and shook violently. They danced and cheered wildly. Su-yi, good job. Su-yi, Ryugan River, Oluo, and the others raised their arms and cheered. That guy was really fine. Su-yi, Su-yi. As Ryugan River and the others shouted, it was like a chain reaction. In an instant, the whole place was in an uproar. Arms raised and cheers intertwined and resounded through the sky. Su-yi's supporters in the stadium were extremely excited. They felt like they were on a roller coaster ride. That youth was safe and sound at this moment. He was able to fight against Naren Ryu to such an extent. How shocking was this? He's so strong. He's actually fine. Many Naren Ryu supporters could not help but be moved at this moment. That seemingly thin young man was actually able to fight Naren Ryu to such an extent. He was beaten down time and time again, but he could still stand up. He was so strong that it was a little abnormal. The whole place was in an uproar and the cheers were deafening. Under everyone's gaze, Su-yi's eyelashes fluttered and his slightly closed eyes slowly opened. Phew! When Su-yi opened his eyes, a long breath of turbid air was exhaled from his abdomen along his throat. The red light in his eyes fluctuated and disappeared in a flash. Immediately, Su-yi looked inside his body. Then, the corners of his mouth curled up. He was very satisfied and murmured softly, I finally succeeded. GD Nu K fastest. "Thee playing tricks. Let's see how long you can last." Naren Ryu was angry. The boiling cheers made him even more irritable and restless. His huge palm bent slightly, and a claw distorted the void, reaching out towards Su-Yi and grabbing fiercely. Whoosh! The claw was as fast as lightning, leaving behind several traces that seemed to distort the void. In an instant, it was in front of Su-Yi. A monstrous aura and murderous intent surged and swept in all directions, whistling. Under everyone's gaze, such a claw suddenly stopped in the void, as if it was directly fixed on the golden boulder. What's going on? Some people were shocked and very surprised. They did not know what was going on. Could it be? Some people even suspected that Su-Yi had been crushed into a bloody mist by such a claw. Look! Suddenly, someone exclaimed as they saw an incredible scene. The claw, which was almost a fist bigger than Su-Yi's body, distorted the void and stopped in front of Su-Yi. It was about the length of an arm and could not move an inch further. Under everyone's gaze, they could see that it was because Su-Yi had stretched out his hand. He raised one arm and clenched his 5 fingers, directly blocking the center of the claw. Chapter 846. Such a scene left everyone speechless. It was so shocking that it was unbelievable. The eyes of the experts and elders from the various forces were about to pop out. Suruga, Meihuaye, Elder Gyue, Deputy Palace Master Wanlon, Merciless West, and other experts were also speechless. Their eyes were trembling. Bing Cauldron, Ouyang Yuanfeng, Quang Guilin, Wang Chuanda, and the others were shocked. In the eyes of Nalen Ruyu's enormous and hazy figure, the killing intent in her eyes was replaced by astonishment at this moment. At this moment, only Su-Yi knew himself best. At this moment, the spiritual light in his Dantian sea of qi swirled like the stars. Although it was dangerous this time, the great void spirit sea was successfully forged. Su-Yi raised his eyes slightly and looked at the huge, hazy figure of Nalen Ryu, who was looking down at him. Under the pressure of the divine aura, Su-Yi was calm and indifferent. His ragged robe fluttered in the wind. The corner of his mouth lifted and a faint voice came out from his mouth. "You've been arrogant enough. Every dog has its day." As Su-Yi's voice faded, a new aura spread out from within the skinny figure's body and was completely released. Boom! In an instant, the void around Su-Yi shook. A dazzling red light rushed out from Su-Yi's body and rushed into the clouds. The surrounding energy of heaven and earth was attracted and seeped out from the void. It was as if a bomb had been thrown into a calm lake. Waves instantly formed and ripples spread out in all directions. The light was dazzling. A surge of primordial qi rushed out in all directions. It was vast and mighty. Rumble. In the void of heaven and earth, wind and thunder rumbled. The surging primordial qi was accompanied by a domineering and destructive aura. It caused the entire vast square to shake. Awoo! The barbaric, demonic beasts in the surroundings roared as if they had sensed some kind of aura. All of a sudden, they prostrated themselves, and their beast souls trembled in fear. Su-Yi's hair fluttered, and his body was overflowing with crimson light. At this moment, the crimson light around his body was like a divine halo. His thin figure stood straight, and in front of the enormous claw, he was like an unshakable mountain. Su-Yi stood in the air as the wings on his back flapped. The aura that emanated from his body was like the descent of a god of war. His aura surged, and his destructive might seemed as if it wanted to sweep through everything. First level Yuan Zhun stage. Many experts within the various large sects involuntarily exclaimed when they sensed the aura that spread from the skinny and tall body at this moment. Their gazes were filled with surprise, shock, astonishment, surprise, and complicated emotions. First level of Yuan Zhun stage. In the square, countless young people could feel the aura of a level 1 Yuan Zhun realm cultivator. They were in awe and envy. Is this really a level 1 Yuan Zhun realm cultivator? How can he be so strong? Some of the experts widened their eyes as they felt the aura. Was this really the aura of a level 1 Yuan Jin realm cultivator? Compared to Naren Ryu's aura, they were completely on par. In fact, the domineering and destructive aura was even more frightening than the Saint King aura on Naren Ryu's body. A level 1 Yuan Jin realm cultivator can cause such a stir in the energy of heaven and earth with just his Yuan Qi alone. Just how much Yuan Qi is in this guy's body? Many of the experts were shocked as they whispered among themselves. They had never seen a level 1 Yuan Jin realm cultivator possess such a vigorous Yuan Qi. It was too shocking. In terms of shock, no one could be compared to Naren Ryu, who was standing right next to Sui. Feeling the vigorous aura and pressure that soared into the sky in front of her claw, Naren Ryu's soul felt uneasy. The terrifying aura on the former's body was completely different from before. At this moment, no one knew that Su Yi's breakthrough from the peak of level 9 Yuan Spirit Stage to level 1 Yuan Jin Realm was not just a simple breakthrough. More importantly, he had completed the forging of his Great Void Spirit Sea. The Yuan Qi vortex in his Dantian had been refined 9 times. Every time it was successfully refined, the enhancement would multiply. This was Su Yi's biggest gain at this moment. During the duel, the Great Void Spirit Ocean was successfully forged. Su Yi broke through the first level of Yuan Jin stage and stepped into a whole new level. As he felt the surging Yuan power in his body, as well as the spiritual strength in his mind that had once again strengthened, Su Yi could not help but feel an incomparable feeling of power in his heart. A smile hung on his face as his eyes stared at the enormous hazy figure in front of him. His eyes gradually turned awe-inspiring as a huge force directly gushed out from his fist, viciously smashing against the paused claw. Suddenly, under this huge force, everyone could see that cracks appeared around Naren Ryu's huge handprint, and the holy aura was directly shattered. Chilala, OP head, X hair. The claw imprint then collapsed and turned into countless rays of light before disappearing into the void. The 5th level of Yuan Jin stage is just SOSO. After shattering the claw print in front of him, a cold smile appeared on Su Yi's face. However, he was not really careless or underestimating them. Naren Ryu's strength was self-evident. Su Yi knew that if it were not for the fact that Naren Ryu had expended a huge amount of Yuan power, he would not have been able to relax. More importantly, the successful cultivation of the Great Void Spirit Ocean and the fact that he had stepped into Yuan Jin stage were Su Yi's greatest trump cards. After the claw imprint was shattered, Naren Ryu finally recovered from her shock and uneasiness, as waves of emotion finally appeared in her eyes. As her expression changed, Naren Ryu's handprint quickly formed. At the same time, a ray of light surged in the center of her palm, as a strange phenomenon appeared, as if the surrounding void was surging with wind and clouds. Su Yi snorted coldly as he shook his arm. At this moment, the aura of the 1st level of Yuan Jin stage was completely released from his body. Vigorous Yuan power surged from the real Great Void Spirit Ocean, as it poured out like a flood and finally gathered in his tightly clenched fist. Su Yi's figure was like a ghost, as he was just inches away from her. Immediately, he threw out a punch. Seeing Su Yi's speed, Naren Ryu was shocked. Her expression changed as she immediately struck out with her handprint. Overlord Fist. As Naren Ryu struck out with her handprint, Su Yi let out a loud roar as he threw out a punch without any fancy moves. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the fist and palm collided. Although Su Yi's fist was small, the moment it collided with the palm print, a ray of light shone brightly. His fist seemed to have expanded as the sound of wind and thunder could be heard. Rumbling sounds could be heard, as if an overlord had awakened, as if an emperor had descended, as if an overlord had descended. Rumble. On top of the golden boulder, rumbling sounds could be heard, as the boulder trembled continuously, as the energy dissipated in a ring shape. Ding ding. Chapter 847. Violent shadow shatters the 9 nether. Heavenly Tiger Force. Almost at the same time, he seemed to have been prepared. He flapped the wings on his back and directly appeared in the void in front of Naren Ryu's huge and hazy figure. His entire temperament was different, as if a demon god had awakened. His robe fluttered, and his black hair fluttered behind him. The aura on his body seemed to carry the fury of thunder, which was powerful and terrifying. Light shone under his feet, as if mysterious and ancient patterns were flowing, and there were unfamiliar runes surging out. 8 Barren Fury, violent shadow, shatters the 9 nether. In the midst of the low roar, Su Yi's feet were as fast as lightning. In an instant, it was as if endless footprints were kicked out. The light was like a small sun exploding. The aura was incomparably domineering, majestic, and destructive. Bang, 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 the void rumbled. Under such footprints, the space was distorted and the void trembled. It was as if it could destroy everything. Awoo! Under the terrifying aura, the surrounding barbaric beasts and mounts trembled and roared in response. Naren Ryu was still in the midst of retreating. Her expression changed drastically as she hurriedly responded. Light burst out, and countless palm prints rushed out to resist the countless footprints. However, the countless footprints that exploded like a small sun did not dissipate. An ancient aura, accompanied by a monstrous aura, once again engulfed the huge golden rock. A scarlet light rose like the sun, and a mighty pressure spread in all directions like a storm. Roar! A red ferocious tiger that looked like a living creature appeared. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the surroundings, emitting an unparalleled pressure. The tiger's roar was sonorous, like the sound of wind and thunder, deafening. Su Yi's Heavenly Tiger Force was activated. The ancient aura, accompanied by a terrifying aura, shook the surroundings and frightened people's souls. The tiger's claw directly tore through the void and fell towards the huge and hazy figure. Su Yi had already used the 3rd kick of the 8 Barren Fury and Heavenly Tiger Force on Naren Ryu. However, at this moment, with Su Yi's current strength, the power displayed was many times stronger than before. Rumble. The entire golden boulder rumbled incessantly, as if the entire space was about to explode. Muffled sounds of energy reverberated everywhere. Terrifying gales swept out like tornadoes, shooting straight into the clouds. Light soared into the sky. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock, especially the experts present. They could clearly feel that Su Yi's strength had increased by leaps and bounds after reaching level 1 Yuanjin realm. This level of strength was simply too abnormal. It was not something that a level 1 Yuanjin stage practitioner should possess. Dang dang. Countless astonished gazes could be seen as the enormous hazy body on the golden boulder became smaller and smaller. The surroundings of the figure exploded, and a rain of light poured down. Naren Ryu was forced to retreat. At the last step, her hazy figure and the red tiger disappeared at the same time. PFFF. Finally, Naren Ryu spat out a mouthful of blood. Her extraordinary temperament had already been battered and exhausted. She had a high-nosed bridge, thin lips, sword-like eyebrows, and disheveled hair. Especially her pair of oppressive lightning-like magnificent eyes. At this moment, they had been completely replaced by shock. Everyone in the Sacred Mountains lineup was completely dumbfounded when they saw this. Bing Cauldron and the others did not expect the tables to turn in such a short period of time. At this moment, Naren Ryu was completely suppressed by Su Yi to such a miserable state. How can a level 1 Yuanjin stage practitioner be so strong? Some of the Sacred Mountain elders could not believe it. They were unwilling to accept this fact. Even if Su Yi had broken through to level 1 Yuanjin stage, Naren Ryu was also at level 5 Yuanjin stage. How could she be defeated so easily? After all, Naren Ryu was the chosen one of the Sacred Mountain. This kid is a freak. Too freakish. The other experts, including Elder Gyua, Vice Palace Master Wanlon, and even Merciless West, were all shocked. With a level 1 Yuan Jun stage cultivation, he was able to suppress Naren Ryu in such a manner. This was definitely a freakish freak. He was so strong that it defied the natural order. This is too freakish. Far away from the spacious square, Xiao Ming, Chun Yinhuan, Li Qingwei, and the other geniuses were so shocked that they could not breathe. That terrifying guy had actually broken through to level 1 Yuan Jun stage in the middle of the battle. His combat strength was so freakish that it was unbelievable. Since they were young, they had always thought of themselves as geniuses with extraordinary talent. In fact, they were indeed qualified. But now, compared to the skinny young man in front of them, Xiao Ming and the others realized that their so-called extraordinary talent was not even worth mentioning. The pride and confidence in their hearts were continuously beaten in this battle. They wanted to find a hole to hide in. Boom! Su Yi is invincible. Su Yi defeated Naren Ryu. So what if he is from the Sacred Mountain? So what if he is the chosen one of the Sacred Mountain? Su Yi is invincible. After a short pause of silence at this moment, from the thousands of mountains and peaks, as if they had agreed beforehand, shouts and waving arms gathered and shot into the clouds, all cheering for Su. Wave after wave of cheers resounded like thunder beyond the mountains and thousands of peaks. On the golden boulder, Naren Ryu's hair was disheveled. Listening to the waves of cheers for Su Yi and feeling the gazes from all around, he raised his head and looked at the young man who was looking down at him. His body was trembling, his pale, handsome face was twitching, and his eyes were getting colder and colder. Suddenly, light surged from the soles of his feet, and the Yuan Qi wings on his back appeared again, and he shot straight up. Just as Naren Ryu was about to make a move, Su Yi's sharp soul power could see everything clearly, and he could not escape. Still want to try? With a cold snort, Su Yi's eyebrows twitched, and his figure swooped down, leaving a strange arc in the air like a ghost. His figure appeared beside Naren Ryu, and his right fist blasted out towards Naren Ryu's side like lightning. Naren Ryu's figure had just soared into the air, but after all, he was not a weakling and was the absolute peak of the younger generation. His feet left the ground, and his figure directly retreated and actually avoided Su Yi's punch. A cold snort came out from his mouth. Who do you think you are? How can you be compared with me? Naren Ryu. Today, no matter how amazing you are, you will be defeated by me. When the last word came out, Naren Ryu's figure had a trace of killing intent in his eyes, and his figure trembled, and like an afterimage, he directly disappeared in front of Su Yi, which was very strange. Chapter 848. Just where Su Yi had been, a fingerprint wrapped in divine aura shot out like a thunderbolt. The fingerprint pierced through the spatial ripples in the void, and a fierce gust of wind with killing intent spread out. This terrifying fingerprint swept across Su Yi's clothes, directly destroying Su Yi's already ragged clothes. However, the fierce gust of wind did not harm Su Yi's skin at all. It only left a shallow mark on Su Yi's body, which was overflowing with red light, but it soon recovered. Do you think that's all? You're still too inexperienced. The gloomy voice was filled with awe-inspiring intent, and a claw print of cold light appeared in an incomparably strange way after the fingerprint. Naren Ryu's figure also appeared directly in front of Su Yi, a cold smile in her eyes. Victory was in her grasp, and her hand was like a black tiger digging out the heart, directly grabbing at Su Yi's chest. Everything happened too quickly. Naren Ryu had calculated Su Yi's escape route and executed her killing move. Wah! Carrot, be careful. At this moment, countless eyes could not help but be on tenterhooks for Su Yi. Even many elders and experts of the large sects were tensing up for Su Yi. Chila! The claw print was swift and fierce, as if it could tear apart the void. Its speed was as fast as lightning, and its power was like thunder, directly landing on Su Yi's chest. The Yuan Qi protective halo around Su Yi's body was shattered, and the claw print swept into his chest, about to be pierced through. Many eyes trembled, and they sucked in a breath of cold air. They could not help but feel their hair stand on end. If Su Yi's heart was directly dug out, no matter how heaven-defying he was, there was nothing he could do. This was no longer a duel, and Naren Ryu was determined to kill him. Chilala! Su Yi's chest was crushed by Naren Ryu's claw, but a strange scene appeared. Strange fluctuations appeared in the void around his figure. Countless eyes were filled with astonishment. Su Yi's figure was like a series of afterimages. He directly transformed into a blurry red light and appeared beside Naren Ryu in an inconceivable manner. 8 Desolate's fury, suppressing the mountains and rivers with 1 foot. Su Yi let out a loud roar, his black hair fluttering in the wind. His imposing manner was like the wrath of thunder, causing the surrounding space to vibrate for no reason. Space rippled, and his aura instantly filled the sky. The scene was terrifying. A Yuan-Chi vortex appeared under his feet, sweeping out like a storm. The air rumbled for no reason, and his foot directly kicked Naren Ryu's head. Boom! Too fast. This kick was not only as fast as lightning, but more importantly, it was completely beyond everyone's expectations. It was even beyond the expectations of Naren Ryu. A terrifying gust of wind energy instantly struck Naren Ryu's proud head, and a muffled sound suddenly sounded. Everything was too abnormal, and Naren Ryu could not react in the slightest. Naren Ryu, who was immersed in a state of ecstasy, had not yet recovered from a shock, when the aura halo around his body was directly shattered by the kick. Puff! The kick directly stomped on Naren Ryu's head. The violent and domineering destructive force caused his head to make a muffled sound, and there seemed to be the crisp sound of his skull cracking. A large mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. It was also at the same time that Su Yi kicked out. His body was in midair, and the Yuan-Chi wings on his back were flapping. His body was upside down in an extremely strange and mysterious posture, and he clenched his fist and punched out. Naren Ryu's head was in severe pain, and even his soul was trembling. There was a buzzing sound in his head, and the pain was so severe that he almost fainted. His head felt like it was about to be crushed. But before Naren Ryu could scream, Su Yi's fist directly came down on his face. The kick to the head made Naren Ryu feel dizzy and shock. His reaction was greatly slowed, and he was incomparably shocked. Naren Ryu thought that he had everything under control, who knew that the other party was completely beyond his expectations. That kick was an incomparable humiliation. That was a trampling on him, and at this moment a fist was in front of him. Bam! The solid punch landed on Naren Ryu's body under such a series of heavy blows, suddenly shot backward from a low altitude like an impact cannon. He heavily smashed onto the golden boulder. Bam! Under everyone's gaze, Naren Ryu's body fell like a cannonball. The entire golden boulder was shaking, and people could not help but click their tongues. Puff, puff! The pitiful Naren Ryu's body was directly sprawled on the ground, and blood spurted out wildly. Just as he raised his eyes slightly, Naren Ryu wanted to struggle and jump up. Suddenly, his eyes were filled with shock, and for some reason, he spat out large mouthfuls of blood, as if he could not stop it. At this moment, only Naren Ryu himself knew that Su Yi's punch just now seemed simple, but contained a terrifying force, like layers of endless shock waves. There were 7 different forces in that punch. Some were hard, some were soft, some were soft, some were soft, some were soft, some were horizontal, some were straight, and some were retracted. At this moment, his mind was in a daze, his soul was trembling, and his chi and blood were surging in his body. He could not resist the force that came at him, and that force seemed to want to explode all his internal organs. Under the terrifying force, Naren Ryu could no longer hold back and suffered a heavy injury. Not good. All the experts were stunned. This scene was also beyond everyone's expectations. In terms of actual combat experience, Naren Ryu thought that he could crush Su Yi, but he did not know that in real combat experience, Su Yi can throw him 10 streets away. Old man Guyue could not help but say in a low voice. The corner of his mouth raised into a smile, and his old face also carried smile. Old man Guyue could naturally see everything that had happened just now. Naren Ryu thought that his actual combat experience was enough to crush Su Yi, and he also had the advantage in speed and cultivation, so he simply wanted to use this method to kill. However, Naren Ryu did not know that Su Yi's actual combat experience was completely above his, and even his speed was not inferior to his at all. Instead, it was even superior. Humph! Merciless West's face also revealed a smile. Among all the people present, there was probably no one who understood Su Yi better than him. Merciless West knew where Su Yi's actual combat experience came from. Back then, when Su Yi was still weak to the point that he could be ignored, he was already mingling in places like the Barbaric Demon Forest and the Barbaric Demon Forest. The Barbaric Demon Forest and the Barbaric Demon Forest were places where people ate people. Although Naren Ryu was talented and the Sacred Mountain had given everything to nurture him, he naturally had all kinds of actual combat experience. Chapter 849. It was just like the Sacred Martial Secret World. Although it was said to be a life and death trial, and no one could control the dangers within, this kind of danger was, in fact, known to all the major forces. The Sacred Martial Secret World was a dangerous place, but for the most outstanding disciples of the major forces, they had a certain degree of control. Although they did not dare to say that they were 100% confident, they still had 90% confidence that they would not lose their most outstanding disciples. Otherwise, the major forces would not have sent their most outstanding disciples into the Sacred Martial Secret World to take a walk. However, Su Yi's trial was different. There was no guarantee in places like the Savage Demon Forest and the Savage Demon Forest. All of Su Yi's actual combat was a life and death battle. It was a real life and death battle. Therefore, if Naren Ryu and Su Yi had the same actual combat experience, the difference between the two might not be obvious in a duel. But once it was a life and death battle, the difference between the two would immediately be obvious. Su Yi is invincible. The king of heaven's prides, who can dominate in all directions, is Su Yi. Su Yi, I love you. When Naren Ryu's body smashed into the ground, the cheers and shouts from the thousands of peaks in the mountain range also reached their peak and resounded like thunder. Even many young women were in a daze. Ripples surged out of their eyes as they were completely conquered. At this moment, the thin young man had conquered the entire audience with supreme majesty. This was the true king of heaven's prides, who could dominate in all directions. Buzz! Everything was not over yet. Su Yi's actual combat experience was honed in life and death battles. How could he give up such an opportunity? Everything was as smooth as flowing water. Just as Naren Ryu fell to the ground and vomited blood, Su Yi also stabilized his body immediately. He stepped into the void, flapped the wings on his back, and a large saber appeared in his hand. With the infusion of Yuan Qi, the Crimson Fire attribute Yuan Qi around Su Yi's body surged crazily. Traces of fire attribute energy that seemed to have materialized spread out from the void and instantly revolved around the large blade. A blazing storm emerged, and the energy swept out in all directions. Wild Dragon Overlord Slash. Without any hesitation, Su Yi held the large saber in his hand with both hands. The surrounding void instantly spread out into a small blazing storm. A violent and sharp power emerged from it. Su Yi's arms and the saber viciously chopped down. In an instant, a saber light that seemed to drag a long red thunderbolt burst out. Roar! There seemed to be a faintly discernible shadow of a red dragon in the blade light. Then a violent and sharp aura exploded with a loud rumble. It seemed as if it could cut through the void as it slashed towards Naren Ryu. All the experts present knew that if this saber fell, Naren Ryu would be seriously injured even if she did not die. Boy, how dare you! Loud shouts sounded out in the blink of an eye. Bing Cauldron's figure instantly disappeared from the Sacred Mountain's lineup. Bing Cauldron, who dares to disrupt the sacred martial assembly? At the same time, a faint voice rang out. Elder Guiyue's figure also disappeared from the Imperial Palace's lineup. Qila, in an instant, even faster than Su Yi's saber light, Bing Cauldron and Elder Guiyue's figures strangely appeared on the golden boulder above the vast square almost at the same time. It was as if the void had been torn apart, and the two of them directly collided. Rumble, the muffled sound of energy reverberated, and tornado-like energy ripples swept out from the collision between Bing Cauldron and Elder Guiyue. An icy aura soared into the sky, and flames soared into the sky. Crack, crack, the vast square was shattered, and a deep pit was blasted open. The terrifying destructive power was powerful, and the surroundings were a mess. Roar. At the same time, a dragon's roar resounded, and a dragon-like saber light fell directly on Naren Ryu's body. Light soared into the sky, and a blazing aura engulfed the entire golden boulder, obscuring one's vision. Bang, bang. The golden boulder trembled incessantly, accompanied by a terrifying aura that soared into the sky. Qila. In the sky, Bing Cauldron's figure retreated. He could not care less about the hidden loss he had suffered. His eyes immediately turned to the golden boulder, and his expression changed drastically. Bing Cauldron's face was gloomy and ashen. He knew very well that if anything happened to Naren Ryu today, it would be an immeasurable loss to the entire Sacred Mountain. Whoosh whoosh. Positive PG version $first hashtag. Boom. Almost at the same time, the elders and experts of the Sacred Mountain, as well as Vice Palace Master Guanlan of the Yuqian Palace, stepped into the air and stood behind Bing Cauldron and Elder Guiyue. Their auras swept across the sky, tit for tat, vast and mighty. But at this moment, all of these experts' eyes fell on the golden boulder at the first moment. That was the most crucial point of the entire scene. Merciless West and Green Emperor also stepped into the air and stared at the scene. He was very clear about the movements around him, but his eyes also fell on the golden boulder below. The saber light dissipated, and the energy dissipated. Under everyone's gaze, the place where Naren Ryu was just a moment ago flashed with a hazy light, and then a clear figure appeared again. She's fine. Naren Ryu seems to be fine, someone said in a trembling voice. Naren Ryu seemed to be fine, so she could be said to be strong. Today, these two young people were abnormally strong. Naren Ryu's figure appeared amidst the throbbing gazes. Her entire body was enveloped in a hazy radiance, and the aura on her body fluctuated. A white dragon-like illusory image had actually appeared around her body. It was as if it was alive, and it emitted an incomparable pressure. This aura seemed to be very weak because of Naren Ryu's exhaustion, but the pressure of the aura gave people a feeling that it was much stronger than the Saint Ruler aura that Naren Ryu used before. However, it could also be seen that Naren Ryu was in an extremely sorry state at this moment. Her clothes were tattered and covered in blood. Her light cyan-colored long hair was in a mess. The divine light in her eyes had long been replaced by resentment and shock. Saint Ruler Protective Aura. The Chosen has cultivated the Saint Ruler Protective Aura. Suddenly, surprised voices came from the mouths of Quan Galan, Wang Xuanda, and the other experts of the Sacred Mountain. They seemed to know best what Naren Ryu's aura represented. Bing Cauldron's eyes were filled with joy, as if he had just been pardoned from a great crime. He couldn't help but let out a heavy sigh of relief. Chapter 850. And now, Naren Ryu's Saint Ruler Protective Aura was already at the end of her tether. She was heavily injured, and Su-Yi, on the other hand, was in a weakened state. It was difficult for him to gain any advantage. When Naren Ryu's figure gradually appeared, Su-Yi's pupils suddenly shrank. Without any delay, he swung the broadsword in his hand again. Yuan Qi surged through his meridians and gathered on the blade. As the broadsword fell, the broadsword light rotated. It was like an arc of electricity, like a crescent moon streaking across the void. It carried a faint shadow of light like a dancing dragon as it slashed directly at Naren Ryu. "Kid, how dare you?" Bing Cauldron shouted. At this moment, how could he not feel the killing intent on Su Yi's body? This kid actually wanted to kill Naren Ryu. Bing Cauldron, who dares to interfere in the sacred martial assembly? Elder Gyue also shouted at the same time. He had been staring at Bing Cauldron all this time, and was also paying attention to Su Yi. Seeing Su Yi's attack, Elder Gyue's heart trembled. This guy actually wanted to take the opportunity to kill Naren Ryu. What kind of deep hatred did he have with the Sacred Mountain? Elder Gyue also knew that Naren Ryu and the entire Sacred Mountain also wanted to kill Su Yi. In this situation, since it was already a matter of life and death, he might as well let Su Yi kill Naren Ryu. At this moment, what he needed to stop now was someone else from interfering. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, from both sides of the Sacred Mountain's Imperial Palace, a burst of aura erupted. Yuan Qi light shot into the sky, and the aura instantly soared into the sky. Yuan Zhen and Yuan Spirit Realm experts couldn't compare to these experts. Every single move they made seemed to stir up the winds and clouds. Instantly, the color of the sky changed as vast and mighty energy filled the horizon, causing one to be flabbergasted and tremble in fear. Stop! Right at this moment, when a battle was about to break out, a light shout silently spread out from the depths of space. The voice was long and drawn out, yet when it entered into the ears of others, it was deafening. At this moment, a blazing aura quietly spread out from the depths of the void. It silently caused the entire vast square to become blazing hot. This blazing aura caused one's skin to burn and their souls to tremble. The Yuan Qi in their bodies felt like it was on fire. Qi-la, just as Su Yi's saber was about to sweep down on Naren Ryu, it was as if the entire space had frozen and a blazing aura fluctuated out. Su Yi's saber strike, which had been aimed at Naren Ryu, disappeared into thin air. In midair, Su Yi's eyes suddenly changed. The blazing aura was too terrifying, causing the heavenly origin demon soul in his mind to suddenly fluctuate. An extremely dangerous feeling crept up from his heart for no reason. At the first moment, Su Yi's gaze, like everyone else, looked towards the depths of the void. Above the void, the blazing aura quietly spread out. The entire vast square was like an invisible sea of fire, and the surrounding mountains and peaks rippled with blazing heat. Hualala! A crack suddenly tore open in the calm void, and a figure strode out from it. The figure was hazy, and as it appeared, the entire surrounding void quietly trembled for no reason. From high up in the sky, it was as if an open flame had appeared, surrounding the hazy figure. The light surrounding the figure made it seem like a god had descended. The figure instantly became clear. It was an old man who looked to be in his 70s. On his wide red robe, there was a cluster of burning flames embroidered on his chest, as if a real flame was burning. His long hair was as red as fire, and on his broad forehead there was a small red pattern flickering with light. It was very special, and his eyes were like torches, like the raging flames in a sea of fire. When such an old man appeared, the air around him seemed to be on fire, giving off a feeling of nothingness. From the depths of the void, the blazing heat seemed to evaporate the air, filling the air with white smoke, causing the spirits of living creatures to tremble for no reason. Sacred Fire Elder. When such an old man appeared, there were voices of astonishment in the square. The appearance of such an old man caused the faces of Elder Deputy Palace Master Wanlan and the others in the Command Heavenly Palace to turn grave, frowning. The experts and elders of the 5 sects and 3 factions were originally watching the development of the situation with concern. When the old man appeared, their eyes were filled with shock. So strong, Su Yi's heart trembled. Such an old man gave off an extremely dangerous feeling. When he appeared, the energy of heaven and earth in the surroundings also moved. How powerful and terrifying was he? In the boiling square, at this moment, Everyone could feel the blazing aura above the void, as if it could spread through the mountains of thousands of peaks, causing people's hearts to tremble for no reason. The square suddenly quieted down. Who is that? Could it be a super expert? Some experts with good eyesight whispered in the crowd, their pupils constricting as they felt the strange atmosphere. Su-E, you haven't won. You're not enough. A gloomy and resentful voice came from Naren Ryu's mouth. On the golden boulder, the dragon-like phantom around Naren Ryu's body was coiled up. His aura was terrifying, his light green hair draped over his shoulders, and he was already holding a green spear in his hand. The spear was sparkling and translucent, densely covered with lines and radiance, like dragon scales opening and closing. It gave people the feeling of a dragon soaring into the sky, a dragon that wanted to soar into the four seas, causing the surrounding void to distort. An extremely terrifying pressure spread out from the green spear. Vaguely, the green spear seemed to be a living creature, like a divine dragon that was about to awaken. At this moment, on the golden boulder, Naren Ryu was in an extremely sorry state. His body was cracked, blood flowed, and his clothes were tattered, but the aura on his body was still terrifying. Once again, a divine aura spread out, incomparably dazzling. Naren Ryu, the saint of the sacred mountain, the absolute representative of his generation in the entire central ground. There was no doubt that he was a genius. At this moment, the dragon-like phantom was coiled up, holding the spear in his hand. His aura once again recovered to its peak, breathtaking. It's actually that thing. The aura that rushed out from Naren Ryu's body at this moment shocked everyone. Many of the experts from the 5 sects and 3 factions stared at the green spear. Their eyes were filled with shock, passion, shock, and very complicated emotions. Could it be a divine weapon too? Suyi's gaze had been focused on Naren Ryu. When such an aura spread out, he had already sensed it at the first moment, and his eyes trembled. The aura from the green spear made Su-E feel as if he was facing the starry sky soul. The aura was too terrifying. The terrifying aura made Naren Ryu feel like a withered tree that had been rejuvenated in spring, climbing to the peak again. Su-E, you haven't won. I can't lose, impossible. The one who should die should be you. Chapter 851. Everything that had happened today had driven Naren Ryu to the brink of insanity. She couldn't accept this fact. PFFF. However, just as that frightening aura surged out, Naren Ryu once again spat out a large mouthful of blood. At the same time, her aura became chaotic again. She staggered a few steps back, the light in her eyes dimmed, and she fell backwards. PFFF. In the air, the red-haired, red-robed old man appeared beside Naren Ryu, twisting the space around him. He grabbed Naren Ryu, who was on the verge of fainting, and pulled her into his arms. Several hand seals landed, and his brows furrowed. After that, he stuffed several medicinal pills into Naren Ryu's mouth. Greetings, Sacred Fire Elder. Read original * our Chapter Z on $% in the Sacred Mountains lineup. The elders, experts, Kwang Guilon, Ouyang Yuan Feng, and the others all landed on the golden boulder and bowed beside the old man. Their eyes were filled with joy. Bing Fu's face was also filled with a smile. The Sacred Mountains reinforcements had finally arrived. He had agreed to let Su-E continue the Sacred Martial Assembly because he had secretly used the Sacred Mountains methods to inform them and wait for their reinforcements. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to do anything to Old Man Gyue. On the other hand, Bing Fu also thought that if Naren Ryu had the chance, he would directly kill that brat. No one would have anything to say. However, Bing Cauldron had never imagined that Isu would be able to reach such a level. He had quite a bit of history. More importantly, his strength had reached such a terrifying level. On the golden boulder, the red-haired old man's furrowed brows relaxed slightly after stuffing several pills into Naren Ryu's mouth. After handing over Naren Ryu to an expert from the Sacred Mountain, his gaze slowly swept across the crowd. Su-E wins. The King of Heaven's Prides, Su-E. Su-e, good job. Su-e, Su-e. Naren Ryu's fainting caused the crowd to erupt into an uproar again. Countless Su-e supporters raised their arms and shouted excitedly. Obviously, Naren Ryu was defeated and Su-e was victorious. For the spectators, this represented the small sections. This was the first time they were so close to Sacred Mountain. Sacred Mountain was no longer out of their reach. Even the strongest of their peers could be defeated. Ordinary people also had the chance to defeat the strongest of their generation in the Sacred Mountain. Their shouts were deafening, each wave louder than the last. Many of Naren Ryu's supporters were also shocked and moved. Today, a young man like that had swept away everything in a ferocious manner. Finally, in the battle with Naren Ryu, he used his cultivation at the 9th level of Origin Spirit Realm to contend with Naren Ryu time and time again. Using one trump card after another, he shocked everyone present and made them shudder with fear. In the end, everyone thought that Su-e was going to be defeated. However, Su-e never gave up. Every time he was defeated, he would stand tall again and again. During the battle, he broke through to the 1st level of Yuanjun Realm and overcame his disadvantage, defeating Naren Ryu with unparalleled strength. This was not only a victory, all of this was acknowledged and shocked by countless people. This was the King of Heaven's prides in their hearts. This was what it meant to sweep away everything. Young Marshal Granduncle. In the crowd, Sitamuyang was incomparably excited. Good guy, he has strengthened our Shunjian Gate. Ryugan River, Jianshi, Oluo, and the others were also trembling with excitement. Sakura, Asaka, Gongqi, and the others' eyes were filled with shock. That terrifying guy really won. He defeated the Sacred Mountain's chosen, Naren Ryu. Su-e. The whole place was filled with shouts and cheers. Even some of the older onlookers were affected by it. They were moved and cheered along. In the lineup of the 5 sects, 3 factions, Yuqian Palace, and the others, the experts looked around and looked at each other in dismay. In the history of the Sacred Martial Assembly, there had never been a winner who had gained such recognition and prestige. However, the experts of the 5 sects and 3 factions knew that this young man was too powerful. How could they not be deeply shocked? Amidst the cheers of the crowd, the powerhouses of the Sacred Mountain all had complicated looks on their faces. This was not the result they wanted. Bing Fu's expression was even gloomier. His eyes flickered, and he seemed to be transmitting his voice to the red-robed, red-haired old man. This caused the red-haired old man's eyes to involuntarily land on Su-e. A light immediately surged out from his blazing eyes as his expression became incomparably complicated. Su-e stood at a low altitude. His body was overflowing with light. His eyes were deep, and there was a sense of arrogance in them. He was otherworldly and could look down on everyone. Feeling the gaze of the red-haired old man, Su-e felt uneasy for no reason. The one who came is the Sacred Fire Elder of the Sacred Mountain. This person's strength is not bad. This is going to be troublesome. However, no matter what, the Yuqian Palace will stand behind you. No one can touch you. Elder Gyue's voice fell into Su-e's ears. His figure quietly stood beside Su-e. Merciless West and the Green Emperor also quietly crossed the void and stood beside Su-e. Boss, good job. I knew you would be able to beat that guy. Su Xiaoshui jumped onto Su-e's shoulder. He was very excited. His little head was proudly held high. His little eyes moved around, emitting a bright light. Su-e smiled, and then looked at Elder Gyue beside him. He whispered, I have a favor to ask of you. I will remember your kindness. If there is a chance in the future, I will repay you even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of fire. This year's Sacred Martial Arts Conference was very exciting. First of all, I would like to congratulate Su-e for becoming the champion of this year's Sacred Martial Arts Conference. The Sacred Fire Elder spoke slowly. He raised his eyes and looked at Su-e. His voice was not loud, but it was loud enough for everyone to hear clearly in the noisy mountains. Boom! Su-e. The King of Heaven's prides dominating the world. When these words were spoken, the cheers and waving of arms reached the peak. They surged into the sky like thunder, shaking all directions. Hearing the sacred fire elder's words, the experts and elders of the Xinjiang Gate, Jutian Palace, and the 5 sects and 3 factions were all puzzled. The sacred fire elder of the sacred mountain did not make any trouble. Su-yi looked at the sacred fire elder. The sacred fire elder's eyes fell on him at this moment. An obscure aura filled the air, making him feel uneasy for no reason. The void around him seemed to be frozen, and there was a sense of extreme danger. He's too strong. Su-yi knew that the sacred fire elder was too strong. He was definitely the strongest person he had seen so far. It was not difficult to tell from Palace Lord Gyue's solemn words that the sacred fire elder was not ordinary. He was probably stronger than Palace Lord Gyue. According to the rules of the Sacred Martial Arts Conference, if the champion of the Sacred Martial Arts Conference is not a disciple of the Sacred Mountain, he will have the opportunity to enter the Sacred Mountain and cultivate with the Sacred Mountain's sacred sons. This is a great opportunity. Su-yi, pack up and follow me to the Sacred Mountain. Chapter 852. When these words were even clearer than before, they spread throughout the entire place and fell into everyone's ears. The uproar in the entire place gradually subsided and became quiet. A lot of people were surprised. They knew that Su-yi had killed so many disciples of the Holy Mountain. The enmity between him and the Holy Mountain was irreconcilable. If Su-yi went to the Holy Mountain, would he really be able to obtain a great opportunity? Or did the Holy Mountain have an ulterior motive? They just wanted to bring Su-yi back to the Holy Mountain. Once he arrived at the Holy Mountain, it was not certain whether he would obtain an opportunity or be punished. Many people's eyes fell on Su-yi, wondering if Su-yi would be willing to go to the Sacred Mountain. The experts and elders of the 5 sects and 3 factions were even more surprised. The experts of the Xinjiang Gate and the Yutian Palace had complicated expressions. Bing Cauldron, Wang Chuanda, Kuang Galan, and the others were also staring at Su-yi. Kuang Galan, Wang Chuanda, and the others were especially angry. Their eyes were filled with hatred and coldness, but they did not dare to say anything in front of the sacred fire elder. The sacred fire elder's eyes also fell on Su-yi. His eyes had regained their calmness, like an ancient well without ripples. However, the ripples in the depths of his eyes could not hide the waves in his heart. The young man in front of him had defeated Naren Ryu with a cultivation of LV1 Yuan Zhen realm. He did not need to see the battle to know how strong this young man was. I'm not interested in going to the Sacred Mountain. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Su-yi looked at the Holy Flame Elder and shook his head. Su-yi was not stupid to go to the Sacred Mountain. If he went to the Sacred Mountain, he would be a fish on the chopping block. Young man, you're talented, but don't make a mistake. Going to the Sacred Mountain will be of great help to you. The Sacred Fire Elder's eyes flickered slightly as he spoke slowly. His voice was obviously louder, and it shook people's souls. At this moment, Su-yi could feel an invisible, blazing aura pressing down on his body. It was as if it wanted to solidify the void around him, causing his skin to feel waves of heat. The Yuan Qi in his body froze, and even his soul was affected. This was a kind of suppression on the level of cultivation. Even the chosen of the Sacred Mountain was defeated by me. Why should I go to the Sacred Mountain? Su-yi's eyes darkened. The Sacred Fire Elder in front of him was an absolutely terrifying expert. So what? There was no way to be kind today, so why should he be polite? Naren Ryu was defeated, but he was too arrogant. This is a lesson he deserves. Moreover, Naren Ryu cannot truly represent all the younger generation of the Sacred Mountain. The Sacred Fire Elder looked at Su-yi. His voice still did not change much. He paused for a moment before continuing in a neutral tone. Young man, you're talented. If you can go to the Sacred Mountain to cultivate for a while, you might really have the chance to become the number 1 person among the younger generation of the entire Zhongzhou in the near future. I'm now number 1 in the Sacred Martial Assembly. Isn't that enough? Why should I go to the Sacred Mountain? Su, he shook his head and looked at the sacred fire elder. He said, "Perhaps there will be a day when I go to the sacred mountain, but not now." "Young man, you're making a mistake." Why, the sacred fire elder stared straight at Su Yi. His voice became sharper, and it boomed like thunder in Su Yi's ears. An invisible, scorching aura immediately pressed down on Su Yi. It burned Su Yi's skin, and his soul constantly trembled. The energy within his body was greatly affected as well. Su Yi almost collapsed to the ground. This was the sacred fire elder's warning. Su Yi's tit-for-tat attitude had already displeased him. Boom! But at this moment, Su Yi circulated the Origin Supreme technique within him. The heavenly origin demon soul pulsed in his mind, expelling the pressure. Almost at the same time, an invisible aura surged, enveloping Su Yi. The aura was like a spring breeze, immediately expelling all the pressure around Su Yi. Sacred Fire Elder, according to the rules of the Sacred Martial Arts Assembly, if Su Yi doesn't want to go to the sacred mountain to cultivate, he doesn't have to go at all. There's no need to force him. When the aura surged over, Palace Lord Gyue's figure also appeared beside Su Yi. He looked at the Sacred Fire Elder with a kind face and a smile in his eyes. There was a hint of hostility in his eyes. If the champion of the Sacred Martial Arts Assembly is not a disciple of the Sacred Mountain, he will have the opportunity to cultivate with the sons and daughters of the Sacred Mountain. The premise is that the Sacred Mountain agrees. Indeed, we also need Su Yi's agreement. The Sacred Fire Elder's gaze fell on Palace Lord Gyue. He smiled slightly, and some ripples appeared in his eyes, like dancing flames. If that's the case, Su Yi doesn't have to go to the Sacred Mountain if he doesn't want to. Old Man Gyue said. There was a hint of doubt on his ruddy face. He knew the Sacred Fire Elder's temper, but it seemed that there was something wrong with the Sacred Fire Elder's temper today. How could he be so easy to talk to? The experts and elders of the 5 sects, 3 factions, and other major forces were also very surprised at this moment. They originally thought that the Sacred Fire Elder would not let the matter rest after arriving. But now it seemed that the Sacred Fire Elder was actually so good-tempered that he would not pursue the matter of Su Yi killing Chu Zhonghuan and the others. Indeed, he doesn't have to go. The Sacred Fire Elder nodded at Palace Lord Gyue. There was even a smile in his eyes, but then the smile gradually stagnated and disappeared in his eyes. His eyes suddenly became serious, and his gaze suddenly became sharper. He paused for a moment, and then continued in a thunderous voice. However, Su Yi went on a killing spree in the sacred martial secret world. He killed the disciples of the Sacred Mountain, Chu Zhonghuan, Mo Beiming, and the others. This must be reported back to the Sacred Mountain. Phew! The whole place trembled as they looked at each other. The Sacred Mountain would not let the matter rest so easily. The experts and elders of the 5 sects, 3 factions, and other major forces raised their eyebrows. None of them were surprised. How could the Sacred Fire Elder be willing to let the matter rest? At first, he was just trying to be gentle with Su Yi, but it seemed that Su Yi was not the kind of person who would be easily persuaded. Sacred Fire Elder. Everyone witnessed this matter with their own eyes. There were also people who testified that it was the disciples of the Sacred Mountain who planned to kill Su Yi first. Unfortunately, they were not strong enough and were killed instead. In the sacred martial secret world, the disciple of the Sacred Mountain, Chu Zhonghuan, used the soul-controlling talisman. I'm afraid that the Sacred Mountain will have to give everyone an explanation. Palace Lord Gyue's words also became sharp, and an invisible aura spread out from his old figure. The light was dim, and the aura was surging. This is kind of attitude. Today, no matter what, the Yuqian Palace would stand behind Su Yi. Chapter 853. As the Shanghua elder's words echoed, his blazing eyes swept past Su Chun and Yen Lin. From Bing Cauldron's voice transmission, he knew that these 2 youths' gazes were secretly fluctuating. Sensing the Saint Fire Elder's gaze, Su Chun and Yen Lin's eyes narrowed. That old guy was also eyeing them. The elders of the 5 sects and 3 groups exchanged glances with complicated expressions. Everyone knew that the sacred mountain was clearly targeting Su Yi. Su Chun and Yin Lin's performance was just as shocking, and they were both independent cultivators. They clearly didn't want to let Su Chun and Yin Lin go. Ha ha ha! Palace Lord burst into laughter and stared at the Saint Fire Elder. Suddenly, his expression darkened, and he said coldly, "Saint Fire, don't think that nobody knows what you're planning. Since you want to investigate, do it slowly. Su, he doesn't need to go to Sacred Mountain with you. He's a disciple of Heavenly Controlling Palace. He doesn't need to go to Sacred Mountain. He can just wait in Heavenly Controlling Palace. Guyue, don't forget that this is the Central Continent. Su Yi's soul has only been tested in Heavenly Controlling Palace. He can't be considered a disciple of Heavenly Controlling Palace. There are some things that you should know. Don't think that you can act recklessly just because you're from Heavenly Controlling Palace." The Saint Fire Elder stared at Guyue with flames flickering in his eyes. Guyu and Guang Zhu's eyes darkened. They all knew the relationship between Sacred Mountain and the Heavenly Palace. There was an invisible line between the two that no one dared to cross. Su, he had indeed only tested himself in the Heavenly Palace. If he really went against Sacred Mountain like that, it would only give them an advantage, and they might not be able to take advantage. Su Yi, if you're willing to join Heavenly Controlling Palace now and become a true disciple of Heavenly Controlling Palace, no one will be able to touch you then. Palace Lord Gue suddenly looked at Su Yi expectantly. If Su Yi really joined Heavenly Controlling Palace, Heavenly Controlling Palace will be able to face Sacred Mountain head-on, even if Sacred Mountain didn't give up. Guyue, don't go too far. Saint Fire Elder's eyes darkened. If Su Yi really became an official disciple of the Imperial Palace, then today's matter would be really troublesome. As his voice spread out, a vast and blazing aura suddenly spread out from the void like a storm. This aura was so vast that even Palace Master Guyu's old face turned grave. Saint Fire, Su Yi will be protected by Heavenly Controlling Palace today. Palace Lord Guyue's expression immediately darkened. He also leapt forward and blocked in front of Su Yi. A powerful chi suddenly swept out from his body. Immediately, a pressure that made one's soul tremble caused the surrounding chi to surge and the chi to tremble. Rumble. Almost at the same time, Vice Palace Lord Guanlan, Vice Palace Lord Yin Lu, Vice Palace Lord Yin Ding, and the other elders all stepped forward. Their chi spread out, causing the chi to shake. Seeing the chi of Palace Lord Guyue and the other Heavenly Controlling Palace experts, the Saint Fire Elder was also moved. However, he seemed to have made a decision in his heart. He smiled coldly and clenched his fist. In an extremely fast time, the blazing chi in the chi of the void suddenly erupted. A huge fireball condensed from flames fell from the sky like a meteor and swept toward Palace Lord Guyue. Palace Lord Guyue's eyes darkened. He waved his hand and stretched it out. It seemed to distort the void and turned into a huge void-light circle, blocking the blazing fireball. Do it! Almost at the same time, the group of experts from Sacred Mountain had already secretly made preparations. Rumble, waves of chi erupted in an instant, including Ouyang Yuanfeng, Quang Guilan, and the others. A total of 12 silhouettes flew out and connected with each other in an invisible position. Hand seals were formed, and the group of cultivators of the Yuqian Palace, including the Green Emperor and Shi Wuqing, were all included. Oh no, they're going to deal with Su Yi. H asterisk new F asterisk new F asterisk fastest attack hashtag D Deputy Palace Lord Guanlan shouted and immediately saw through Sacred Mountain's purpose. Protect Su Yi. The eyes of the experts in Heavenly Controlling Palace sharpened. They roared angrily, including Merciless West and the Green Emperor. Waves of chi erupted in an instant and blasted toward the encirclement, wanting to break through the blockade and protect Su Yi. Boom! Everything collided with each other, causing the entire void to explode like thunder. Terrifying energy gales spread out in all directions. Crack, crack. The vast square below exploded one after another, and huge gullies split open. Even the golden boulders had many cracks on them. Kid, come back to Sacred Mountain with me. In the space before Su-Yi, an icy aura abruptly permeated the air, causing the space to distort. Bing Cauldron's silhouette suddenly appeared, a cold smile on his face as he sent a gigantic palm imprint directly towards Su-Yi. Bing Cauldron was already prepared. Sacred Mountain had already arranged everything. They wanted to capture Su-Yi directly, so that Heavenly Controlling Palace wouldn't be able to cause trouble. As long as they captured Su-Yi, with the Sacred Fire Elder present, Gyue and the others from Heavenly Controlling Palace wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. Invisible cold qi spread out, immediately freezing Su-Yi's yuan qi and soul. This qi was too strong, so strong that Su-Yi couldn't resist at all. Su-Yi's expression changed greatly. He couldn't resist this power at all. Boom! Suddenly, as if his soul had been frozen, the heavenly origin demon soul in Su-Yi's head rippled. Scarlet-red soul force expanded, devouring the scorching qi and driving away the cold. At the same time, the mysterious ball of light in Su-Yi's mind that had been silent all this time seemed to have sensed an absolute threat. It suddenly glowed, and a powerful aura instantly filled his body, dispelling all the cold air. If he's not willing, it's useless for Sacred Mountain to force him. However, at this critical moment, a cold and sharp voice rang out. For no reason, the bone-chilling aura suddenly stopped in front of Su-Yi and then gradually dissipated. Swish! A skinny figure appeared behind Su-Yi out of nowhere. He clenched his hand into a fist and directly collided with Bai Mingshan's hand seal. Boom! Such a collision caused the earth to quake and the air to tremble. The golden boulder also trembled violently, and the cracks on it widened by quite a bit. Thud, thud. The skinny figure took a few steps back and stabilized his body. Bing Cauldron also took a few steps back and landed on the golden boulders. Bing Cauldron staggered as cracks appeared under his feet. He looked at the skinny figure that suddenly appeared in front of him, and his expression changed greatly. He immediately shouted, "Suruga, what do you want from Shunjian Gate?" I said, "If he's not willing, then Sacred Mountain can't force him." Chapter 854. Swish, swish. Everyone's gaze landed on the skinny figure that had suddenly appeared on the golden boulder. It was an old man who had experienced the vicissitudes of life. His body was as thin as a dwarf, but his aura was so strong that it caused the surrounding space to freeze. It was as if he was not under Bing Cauldron's protection. "It's Suruga from the Shunjian Gate." Many people's eyes trembled. It was actually Suruga from the Shunjian Gate. He had interfered to stop Bing Cauldron. "It's Elder Su." Oluo, Ryugan River, Jianxi, and the others saw the thin figure appear on the golden boulder and instantly became excited. Su-Yi's eyes trembled as he looked at the thin old man who had suddenly appeared in front of him. I forgot that this kid had stayed in the Shunjian Gate for a period of time. However, my Sacred Mountain must bring this kid back today. I'm afraid that you should know what you're doing in the Shunjian Gate. Bing Cauldron looked at the Suruga elder with an ugly expression. The Shunjian Gate actually dared to stop him. Ha ha! Suruga raised his head and looked at Bing Cauldron. His laughter was deafening like thunder and echoed in the void. He said, "Since you know that Su-Yi had stayed in the Shunjian Gate, then you should know that Su-Yi is a disciple of the Shunjian Gate. Bing Cauldron, if you dare to touch a single hair on Su-Yi's head, I dare you." Elder Su's voice was like thunder as he took a step forward. When the last word fell, a vigorous and fierce aura spread out from his body like a dragon that had just woken up from a deep slumber. At this moment, the short figure of the Suruga elder was standing in front of Su-Yi, but he was like a huge mountain blocking Su-Yi's path. His aura was as terrifying as a mountain, and his eyes seemed to have the light of a divine sword flashing in them. Anyone who looked at him would tremble in fear. Su-Yi is a disciple of the Shunjian Gate. Within the formation of Shunjian Gate, Duan Yuerong, Mei Huaye, and several other experts and elders also rushed out at this moment. Immediately, a vast and mighty aura spread out. Only Bai Mingshan did not move. He stood on top of the mountain with an ashen face. What? That Su Yi is actually a disciple of Shunjian Gate. Everyone was stunned, especially the experts from the 5 sects, 3 groups, and other forces who were present. Each and every one of them was shocked. Su Yi, who was terrifyingly talented, was actually a disciple of Shunjian Gate. What if I insist on taking this brat away today? Bing Fu stared at the Suruga with a gloomy face. You could try. The Suruga elder looked directly at Bing Fu, and the light in his eyes was like the light of a sword. All right, I'd like to see how much the genius of Shunjian Gate has recovered. Bing Fu shouted, as if he did not want to waste any time to avoid causing trouble. He stomped on the golden boulder, and a vast and mighty icy aura burst out from his body. His body moved like lightning, and a bone-chilling icy aura condensed into a huge ice pillar. Dazzling light flashed, and it directly shot towards the Suruga elder. Old man Bing Fu, don't think that you're so great just because you're older. Age does not represent strength. At least you, Bing Fu, can't touch the people of Shunjian Gate. Elder Su raised his eyebrows slightly and snorted. His short figure did not retreat, but instead, he moved forward and appeared in front of Bing Fu. He shook his arm and punched out. Bang! A low muffled sound rang out, and then under everyone's watchful eyes, the huge ice pillar directly shattered, breaking inch by inch. The monstrous icy aura dissipated, and Bing Fu's body staggered back. Bang, bang, bang. In the void above, the clash between the experts of Yutian Palace and Sacred Mountain had completely erupted. The surrounding void was completely distorted. Terrifying energy ripples spread out in all directions above the void. The most intense battle was between the Sacred Fire Elder and Palace Lord Guyue. The two seemed to be moving very slowly, but the battle was still going on. The dazzling ball of light and the meteorite-like fireball were still swallowing each other. The two invisible forces confronted each other in the void, and terrifying aftershocks poured out, causing the surrounding void to faintly discernible pitch-black halos, as if the space would collapse at any time. In the void above, Elder Duan Yuerong, Elder Mei Huaye, and the others looked around, but there were no experts to help Yutian Palace. As the elders of Shunjian Gate, they had a special status. They were afraid, so they immediately landed beside Su Yi. Good boy, you've kept us in the dark for so long. % equals original first Q here. Elder Mei Huaye came in front of Su Yi, tugging at his mustache. His brown eyes were deep in his eye sockets, and his originally messy gray hair was combed neatly today. He looked at Su Yi in front of him, as if he could not believe that this boy was still alive. It's okay. Elder Su is here. Elder Duan Yuerong smiled and said to Su Yi, looking at the familiar faces of Elder Duan Yuerong and Elder Mei Huaye in front of him, Su Yi felt warmth in his heart. He nodded with a smile and saluted them. His eyes were still fixed on the battle between Elder Su Kuanga and Bing Cauldron. Suruga, you're too presumptuous. Bing Fu was furious. He had attacked several times, but he could not even get the upper hand over Suruga. He had even suffered a few losses. In his anger, his icy aura filled the sky, as if it had frozen the void. Frost fell from the void, and an icy saber slashed out from the void. Old man Bing Fu, are you flustered and exasperated? Huh. Elder Suruga laughed, as if he was in a good mood. A mighty aura surged out from his body, and suddenly, a sword light flashed in front of him, emitting sword radiance and deafening wind and thunder. Go! In an instant, the surrounding void was distorted, and endless sword radiance was dazzling, filled with an incomparably fierce and terrifying aura. It directly blocked the icy saber radiance. Let me see what level you've reached, Su Kuanga. Bing Fu was furious, and his saber radiance filled the sky, crushing Elder Suruga. As you wish, Elder Saruga replied coldly, and a large amount of sword radiance burst out. Wherever the sword radiance passed, even the void was cut open, as if it was going to destroy everything. Although the golden boulder had been set up, it could not withstand such a terrible impact. It shook and rumbled, and the gully grew bigger and bigger until it finally collapsed completely. Whoosh! Suddenly, Elder Su's shadow shuttled through the void and appeared in front of Bing Fu. A bright sword radiance let out a thunderous sword cry, as if it had pierced through the void and pierced the space between Bing Fu's eyebrows. Bing Fu's expression changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with horror. He quickly unleashed his aura, and the void was constantly distorted. A saber radiance suddenly collided with the sword radiance in front of him. Boom! Chapter 855. Around the vast square, the ground was filled with cracks. Old man Bing Fu, you seem to be nothing more than this. As the monstrous energy collapsed, the Elder of Suruga let out a thunderous roar. Beams of sword light shot into the sky, and waves of terrifying sword waves spread out. Xinjiang Gate only has these tricks. You Suruga are known as the top genius, but unfortunately, times have changed. You're no longer the same as before. Little Junior, do you really think you can do anything to me? Bing Fu was completely enraged. In front of him, Suruga was only his junior. Suruga was known as the top genius of Xinjiang Gate, and had once dazzled the entire Zhongzhou. His reputation had shaken the sacred mountain. However, everything was no longer the same. Su Kuanga was no longer the peerless Su Kuanga of the past. Clang, 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 blade light and sword shadows flashed, and the void exploded. Waves of sword waves were blocked by the blade light. So what if times have changed? I, Suruga, am still Suruga. Suddenly, a faint voice rang out. Elder Su's figure suddenly appeared beside Bing Cauldron. His figure soared through the air like a flash of lightning. In the eyes of Bing Cauldron's ice-cold eyes, a fierce claw directly pressed down. Bing Fu's expression changed. The icy yuan qi on his body fluctuated rapidly, as if a layer of solid ice shield had covered his body. He could only hurriedly throw out a fist to meet the attack. Chi La. When the fist print collided, the claw print of the Elder of Suruga suddenly shattered. Not good. Bing Fu's expression suddenly changed. A trace of panic flashed across his eyes. He quickly retreated. He had a bad feeling. He did not expect Suruga to have reached such a level. Chi La. A claw print quietly appeared behind Bing Fu and was already falling toward his head. The power of space, you have reached such a level. Bing Cauldron could not help but exclaim. Suruga had actually reached such a stage. Fear flashed in his eyes as he quickly retreated and broke free from the bindings. The claw landed on Bing Fu's back, shattering the ice light shield. Several cracks appeared on Bing Fu's robe, and faint traces of blood were left on his body. Bing Cauldron stopped his retreat and quickly turned around. His hair was already disheveled, and he looked very miserable. Bang! At the same time, a muffled sound came from the void. As the monstrous aura dissipated, Palace Master Gyue's figure fell from the void and landed on the ground. Cracks exploded under his feet. Pucci, Palace Master Ge, stomped his foot on the ground and stopped his retreat. However, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Suruga, I did not expect the younger generation of Xinjiang Gate to have grown to such a level. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Then let me see what level you have reached. After repelling Palace Master Gyue, Elder Sheng Ho's voice was faint. His blazing aura filled the sky as he descended from the void. A great force seemed to confine the void and immediately shrouded Elder Suruga. Boom! Elder Su Kuanga wanted to continue to chase after the ice cauldron. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed and his face darkened. He condensed a hand seal, and a mighty yuan qi surged. It triggered the energy of heaven and earth, causing the surrounding void to boil. The surrounding void suddenly began to distort. Eh, the younger generation will surpass us in time. Elder Sheng, his expression changed. Above the void, a blazing flame appeared out of thin air. It covered the sky and the earth and condensed into a huge sea of fire. It seemed to cover the entire area of the shattered golden boulders and swept down fiercely. The terrifying aura made Su Yi, Elder Mei Huaye, Elder Duan Yuerong, and the others tremble in fear. Their skin burned. Boom! Elder Su Kuang's gaze was also dignified. His body's primordial qi rippled, carrying a soul-shaking momentum. Within his short figure, there was an overbearing divine power, spreading from the inside out. The aura on his body was becoming more and more terrifying. It was overbearing and terrifying. Suruga has reached such a level. Looking at the scene in the vast square, the eyes of the experts and elders of the 5 sects and 3 factions trembled violently. Some of them could not help but feel their souls throbbing. Elder Sheng Hu's strength was self-evident, but they did not expect Suruga to have reached such a terrifying level. Roar! Faintly, there was the sound of a dragon's roar. A terrifying aura suddenly descended from the void. Z Update Pinu, the soonest $J update. At this moment, Elder Su Kuanga rose into the air, his primordial qi surging. Behind him, a looming huge and ferocious shadow appeared out of thin air. It was like a dragon or a flood dragon crossing the void. In an indescribable way, accompanied by a kind of demonic power, it directly collided with the sea of fire. Rumble, the void trembled. The flames dissipated in the sky like fireworks. Heaven and earth roared. The muffled sound was like a clap of thunder. It reverberated in the void between heaven and earth, causing countless people to tremble. Very strong, but unfortunately, it's still not enough. The sea of fire cracked. The blazing aura evaporated the air. A huge handprint distorted the void, as if it came from the depths of the void. It directly crushed the flood dragon's shadow behind Elder Suruga and dissipated it. Puff! Elder Su Kuanga spat out a mouthful of blood, and his short figure suddenly fell from the air. Bam! Elder Suruga smashed into the ground. His body rushed into the cracks in the ground, causing the surroundings to explode. The ground shook, dust flew, and gravel flew in all directions. Elder Su Yi cried out in surprise, and his figure instantly flew out. Elder Su, Elder Mei Huaye, and the others also changed their expressions at once. They immediately rushed to Elder Su, who had landed on the ground. Let's finish this quickly. Elder Sheng, who did not seem to have any intention of continuing to attack Elder Suruga. His body moved and appeared in the middle of the battle between the experts of Void, Sacred Mountain, and Juqian Palace. His face was gloomy as he directly struck out a handprint. A surging, scorching aura surged out in an overwhelming manner in a single moment. Like a scorching spatial storm, it viciously slammed into the bound experts of the Heavenly Palace with shocking, terrifying might. Puff, puff, Deputy Palace Lord Guanlon, Deputy Palace Lord Yinlu, Deputy Palace Lord Yunding, Merciless West, Green Emperor, and the others also rushed down from the sky. They vomited blood and fell to the ground. Bang, 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 bang. They fell down one by one like birds with broken wings. It was completely impossible for them to resist. Countless onlookers were shocked. Elder Shenghua from Void Sacred Mountain was too powerful. He was terrifyingly powerful. He was a super expert. Puff! Elder Suruga was helped up. He was still vomiting blood. Shenghua did not show much mercy. Elder Su Yi, Elder Mei Huaye, and the others looked solemn. Sui especially felt guilty. If he had not protected him, Elder Suruga would not have been injured so badly. Chapter 856. Sui felt a lump in his throat as he looked at the short figure in front of him and the smile that was squeezed out on his pale, blood-stained face. Ever since he came to the Divine Sword sect, he had always known that Elder Su who everyone thought had a strange temper and was unapproachable to strangers, had always been very protective of him. This short old man was a man of few words, but his stern face was full of concern. He was both a father and a teacher. Master, boss, Green Emperor, Handsome Sue, and Merciless West rushed to Su Yi's side. Handsome Sue was unharmed, but Green Emperor and Merciless West were both bleeding from their mouths, their faces pale. It was obvious that they'd suffered a great loss at Sacred Flame's hands. The experts of Yuqian Palace stood up one by one, their clothes stained with blood. In the air, Sacred Mountain's Bing Cauldron, Kuang Guilin, Wang Chuanda, and the others all sneered. Who would dare stand in the way of absolute power? Sacred Flame, are you declaring war on Sacred Mountain's behalf? Palace Master Guyu raised his head and stared at Holy Fire Elder with a solemn look in his eyes. Sacred Flame was too strong. Even if he came prepared, he couldn't stop him. Guyue, this brat isn't even a disciple of Yuqian Palace. You know that. If Yuqian Palace wants to interfere, Sacred Mountain has nothing to fear. If you dare to stand in our way again, I won't be polite. Sacred Flame's face regained its calm, but his tone was sharp. He had nothing to fear. Sacred Mountain was apprehensive about Yuqian Palace, but they had absolute confidence. Guyue's eyes narrowed. He knew that Su Yi had only tested his soul in Yuqian Palace, so he couldn't be considered a true disciple. Su Yi didn't truly join the Command Celestial Palace. Command Celestial Palace wanted to protect Su Yi, but they didn't have a valid reason to do so in front of the Sacred Mountain. $. Furthermore, judging from the current situation, whoever had the bigger fist was right. The Holy Flame was simply too powerful. Su Yi, join Yuqian Palace now. Everything will be simple. Just nod your head. Guet glanced sideways and continued to speak to Su Yi. If Su Yi agreed, Yuqian Palace would have a good reason to act, and Sacred Mountain would be more or less wary. Guyue, do you really think this will work? Everything is in vain. Su Yi must return to Sacred Mountain today. Sacred Flame didn't stop Palace Lord Guyue this time. He calmly watched everything as if he had a card up his sleeve. Su Yi, as long as you join Yuqian Palace and become a disciple, Sacred Mountain will be more or less wary. Even if we have to put our lives on the line, we will take you away. If you go to Sacred Mountain, it will be difficult to predict your fortune or misfortune. Guyue looked at Su Yi and transmitted his voice to Su Yi, waiting for Su Yi's reply. Vice Palace Lord Guanlan and the other experts of Yuqian Palace were also waiting for Su Yi's decision. Su Yi looked around before finally looking at Palace Lord Guyue and Vice Palace Lord Guanlan. He bowed and said, "Thank you for your kindness, Palace Lord Guyue and seniors. This junior can't join Yuqian Palace today." The crowd was in an uproar after hearing Su Yi's words. Everyone knew that if Su Yi nodded and became a true disciple of Yuqian Palace, how could Sacred Mountain not be apprehensive with the tempers of the masters of Yuqian Palace? But now, Su Yi directly shook his head. Could it be that Su Yi has changed his mind and wants to go to Sacred Mountain to cultivate with the saints and saintesses? People outside the square whispered. Perhaps Su Yi had changed his mind and wanted to go to Sacred Mountain. Palace Lord Guyue and Vice Palace Lord Guanlan became even more serious after hearing Su Yi's words. Merciless West was also secretly moved. He knew that Su Yi was a smart person. If he nodded at this time, Sacred Mountain would be more or less apprehensive today. But now, Su Yi didn't nod. Merciless West didn't know what this brat was thinking. Haha. Elder Holy Fire laughed, and so did Elder I Spot. Su Yi had rejected Yuqian Palace because he saw the gap between them. He knew that Yuqian Palace wouldn't be able to protect him today, so he chose to go to Sacred Mountain. If this brat really wanted to go to Sacred Mountain, although he would lose Chu Zhonghuan and the other disciples, the gains would definitely outweigh the losses. A wise man submits to circumstances. Su Yi, come with me to Sacred Mountain. It won't be long before you set foot on the true number one of Zhongzhou's younger generation. You still have a chance. Elder Holy Fire looked at Su Yi and stopped laughing. It was as if the death of Chu Zhonghuan and the others was not worth mentioning compared to obtaining this young man. Only Wang Chuanda and Quang Guilan didn't look too good. If Su Yi really went to Sacred Mountain, it wouldn't be a good thing for them. I said, I don't plan to go to Sacred Mountain with you. I won't join Yuqian Palace, so why would I go to Sacred Mountain with you? It won't be too late to go another day. Su Yi raised his eyes and looked directly at Elder Holy Fire. Why would he go to Sacred Mountain? Su Yi won't go to Sacred Mountain either. The whole place was in an uproar. Originally, some people thought that Su Yi had changed his mind. Who would have thought that he still didn't give Elder Holy Fire any face? If Elder Holy Fire didn't join Yuqian Palace, why would he go to Sacred Mountain? This sentence unconsciously put Sacred Mountain under Yuqian Palace. Su Yi had no intention of going to Sacred Mountain at all. Palace Master Guanlan Robe Palace Master, and the others were also surprised. Humph! A cold snort came from the void. A vast and boundless aura fell and instantly enveloped Su Yi. Elder Holy Fire's smiling face instantly froze, then turned ashen and cold. He was actually toyed with by that kid. How could he tolerate it? A blazing aura froze the void and directly crushed towards Su Yi. Boom! Su Yi, watch out. Almost at the same time, two auras rushed out. Elder Saruga and Palace Master Gyue's figures once again shone with brilliant light. The two figures swept across the sky. A sword light and a light seal with terrifying soul fluctuations swept out. You're still a little lacking. The shout was like thunder. A blazing aura fluctuated in the void. It was as if a sea of fire had suddenly surged out of the void. Two giant pythons condensed from flames soared into the sky like crimson dragons. They surged out like living creatures, bringing with them a monstrous, ferocious aura as they ruthlessly collided with the sword light and the light seal. Rumble. The entire world was in turmoil. The muffled sound of energy was like thunder. The terrifying collision caused an energy storm to spread across the sky, as if to overturn the world. Fissures erupted from the ground below, spreading into the mountains and thousands of peaks. Rumble boulders rolled down. The earth shook and the mountains shook. Dust flew into the air as if there was an earthquake. The scene was terrifying. Oh my God, that's terrifying. Chapter 857. Two figures spat out blood and fell to the ground. The Saruga Elder and Palace Master Gyue once again crashed into the ground. In the air, the Holy Fire Elder also retreated a little. There was a strange look in the depths of his eyes, and then he restrained himself. P_starter. Phew. In the 5 sects, 3 factions, and other forces, all the elders and experts were stunned by the strength of the Holy Fire Elder. They were well aware of the strength of the Saruga Elder and Palace Master Gyue. But at this moment, the two of them joined forces and still could not compete with the Holy Fire Elder. It was obvious how terrifying the Holy Fire Elder's strength was. Elder Su, Palace Master, the experts of the Xinjiang Gate and the Yuqian Palace immediately stepped forward, their faces extremely solemn. Su Yi did not move. He bit his lips so hard that blood was flowing from the corners of his mouth. He clenched his fists so hard that the veins on the back of his hands were visible. The Saruga Elder's mouth was bleeding. He stood up with his short body, his hair disheveled, and he looked embarrassed. He raised his hand to wipe the blood from the corners of his mouth. The Saruga Elder's short body seemed a little hunched. He took a few steps forward. Everyone held their breaths and waited. Saruga once again walked in front of Su Yi. He only smiled at Su Yi. His white hair was also stained with blood. He raised his eyes slightly and continued to stare at the Holy Fire Elder. Su Yi is a disciple of the Xinjiang Gate. Whoever dares to touch him, Saruga will fight with his old life today. The Saruga Elder spoke, his voice mixed with primordial chi resounding through the sky. Everyone's eyes moved as they looked at the skinny figure. When these words fell into Su Yi's ears, Su Yi could not help but tremble. His eyes were moist, as if a mist had covered his eyes. Such a short figure standing in front of him at this moment made Su Yi feel like an unshakable mountain. Su Yi is a disciple of the Shunjin Gate. Who dares to touch him? Elder Mei Huaye's eyes trembled. He once again stepped in front of Su Yi and raised his eyes. His aura rippled and the light shone again. Su Yi is a disciple of the Shunjin Gate. Who dares to touch him? Su Yi is a disciple of the Shunjin Gate. Who dares to touch him? Elder Mei Huaye. Elder Mei Huaye. Elders Huaye. The entire place was silent. Countless gazes were trembling. Such a scene could not help but cause one's expression to change. Su Yi is a disciple of my divine sword sect. Whoever dares to touch him, I will fight them to the death. Su Yi is a disciple of the Shunjin Gate. I will fight anyone who dares to touch him. Su Yi is a disciple of the Shunjin Gate. I will fight anyone who dares to touch him. Voices came from all around the square. Then, many young people walked out from the crowd and slowly walked to the center of the square. Each and every one of these young figures was extraordinary and extraordinary. These youngsters were none other than Situ Muyang, Jinshi, Oluo, Sakura, Asaka, Gongqi, and the others. Back then in the Divine Sword Valley, Su Yi had saved them. If not for Su Yi, they would have already died in the Divine Sword Valley. At this moment, how could they retreat? They knew that they were not worth a mention compared to the powerhouses of the Holy Mountain, but they did not want to retreat. Mu Yao's beautiful figure also walked out. There was a golden light in her beautiful eyes. Su Yi turned around and looked at these familiar figures. His eyes became more and more moist, and his vision gradually became blurry. He clenched his teeth and fists, and a smile hung on the corner of his mouth. It seems that Su Yi is not ordinary in the Shunjin Gate. Everyone was moved. They were shocked, and their hearts were touched. Su Chun, Yin Lin, Merciless West, and the others' eyes moved. They were touched by this scene. The Holy Fire Elder, Bing Cauldron, and the others saw this scene, and their eyes narrowed. The Holy Mountain was naturally not afraid of the Shunjin Gate. However, it was impossible for them to kill everyone in the Shunjin Gate today. No one could be responsible for it. Saruga, why are you overestimating yourself? Do you want to bring disaster to the entire Shunjin Gate? The Holy Fire Elder looked at the Saruga Elder and said, Su Yi is a disciple of the Shunjin Gate. Everyone knows that the Holy Mountain bullies him. If the Shunjin Gate can't even protect its disciples today, how can we have the face to stand in Zhongzhou State in the future? The Saruga Elder said. His hair fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were as sharp as swords. Su Yi is a disciple of the Shunjin Gate. The Holy Fire Elder glanced at the Saruga Elder and Gyue. After a pause, his voice suddenly became sharper. With a faint sneer, he said in a deep voice, Su Yi is the champion of the Sacred Martial Arts Conference. It's his freedom to go to the Holy Mountain. The Holy Mountain can't force him. It's a pity that the Shunjin Gate and the Juqian Palace don't know that Su Yi's real identity has always been a disciple of the Holy Mountain. His voice was like thunder, resounding in all directions. The Holy Fire Elder deliberately wanted to announce Su Yi's identity and inform Zhongzhou State. What? Su Yi is a disciple of the Holy Mountain. Wow! When the voice fell, the whole place was in an uproar. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even the experts of the Shunjin Gate and the Juqian Palace were no exception. At this moment, even Merciless West, Su Chun, and the others were full of doubts. Su Yi has always been a disciple of the Holy Mountain. Gyue, Saruga, if you don't believe me, you can ask Su Yi. He came from the barbarian city and is a disciple of the Holy Mountain. Elder Ice Cauldron laughed, his voice spreading out. Su Yi was a disciple of Saint Mountain from the start. If Saint Mountain wanted to bring their own disciple back to Saint Mountain, it was perfectly justified. Even Juqian Palace could not stop them. Moreover, everything that happened today didn't hurt the Holy Mountain's reputation. Su Yi killed Chu Zhonghuan and defeated Naren Ruyu. But so what? Su Yi was a disciple of the Holy Mountain. Palace Master Guyu, Palace Master Wanlan, Elder Su Kuanga, Elder Mei Huaya, and the others all had doubtful eyes. Although they knew that holy fire and ice cauldron wouldn't speak without thinking, they still hoped to verify it with Su Yi. Su Yi looked at ice cauldron, holy fire, and the other experts of the holy mountain, then at the familiar figures at the Xinjiang Gate and the Juqin Palace, but he didn't say anything. Su Yi's tacit agreement left Gyue, Elder Mei Huaya, and the others in disbelief. But Su Yi's attitude was clearly a tacit agreement. They never thought that Su Yi was actually a disciple of the Holy Mountain. It seems that Su Yi really is a disciple of the Holy Mountain. So he's a disciple of the Holy Mountain. No wonder his talent is so terrifying. So Su Yi is a disciple of the Holy Mountain. The crowd was in an uproar, suddenly enlightened. No wonder Su Yi was so terrifying. He was a disciple of the Holy Mountain. Listening to the discussions around, many people in the Holy Mountain's lineup smiled. But there were also many experts with gloomy expressions. After all, Su Yi had killed many of their disciples. From the very beginning, Su Yi was a disciple of the Holy Mountain. No matter which sect he joined later, it doesn't change his identity as a disciple of the Holy Mountain. Today, Su Yi returns to the Holy Mountain. If anyone dares to stop him, don't blame me for not being polite. Holy Fire's voice was filled with undisguised threat and sharpness. His eyes intentionally fell on Elder Saruga and Palace Lord Gyue. Chapter 858. Everyone's expression changed. Sword 11, Situ Muyang, Muyao, Su Chun, Yin Lin, Merciless West, and the others all looked at Su Yi in confusion. Su Yi didn't say anything. His face was calm. Under everyone's gaze, he raised his eyes slightly and said in a voice mixed with primordial qi, I, Su Yi, will leave Xinjiang Gate from today onwards. I have nothing to do with Xinjiang Gate anymore. His voice spread in all directions and fell into the ears of countless people. Everyone's eyes moved. They were all moved. Xinjiang Gate just defended Su Yi to the death. Now, Su Yi wants to leave Xinjiang Gate. I'm afraid that even Su Yi can see that the Sacred Mountain is much stronger than Xinjiang Gate. Is that really the case? Xinjiang Gate defended Su Yi so much, but Su Yi wants to leave Xinjiang Gate. This is too much. A wise man submits to circumstances. Moreover, Su Yi is a disciple of the Sacred Mountain. After the entire place fell silent, the sounds of discussion spread out. They gathered together and spread out with a buzzing sound, echoing in the mountains and peaks. Mei Huaya, do on your own, and the other elders looked at each other and changed their expressions. No, Junior Uncle is not that kind of person. Sita Muyang shook his head. He didn't believe that Su Yi was that kind of person. This lecher's temper can't be like that. Although he is a little lecherous, he can't be that kind of person. Gong Qi also shook her head. Her beautiful eyes changed color. She didn't want to believe that Su Yi was that kind of person. Jieja, in the Sacred Mountain, many people sneered. It was obvious that Su Yi had made a choice in the end. He was certain that Gyue and Saruga would not be able to protect him today, even if they joined forces. A wise man submits to circumstances and leaves the Xinjiang Gate. This was a sign that he was willing to return to the Sacred Mountain. A satisfied smile appeared on Bing Cauldron's face. If Su Yi was willing to return to the Holy Mountain obediently, even though they had lost Xu Zhonghuan and dozens of other disciples, he wouldn't be blamed too much. In fact, it would be considered a great merit. With this kid's talent, even 10 Xu Zhonghuans would not be able to compare to him. Otherwise, when he returned to the Sacred Mountain this time, he would definitely be in big trouble. Losing so many disciples, even with his status as an elder, he could not bear the responsibility. Sheng Wu's face was calm. He looked at Su Yi without much emotion. After being toyed with just now, he couldn't see through this young man. Could it be that this young man is really a wise man who submits to circumstances? Su Yi's voice fell. He didn't look at the familiar figures in the Xinjiang Gate again. He didn't dare to look at those familiar faces. His heart ached as if it was being pricked by needles. I, Su Yi, am from the Bawang sect. I am a sect leader of the Bawang sect. I am only one person. I am an individual cultivator. I have nothing to do with anyone here. Su-yi glanced sideways at Merciless West, Handsome Su, Green Emperor, and the others not far away. His eyes flashed with a hint of smile. WVI edition, chapter TW section, on **E-boss. Little handsome Su paused for a moment, and his little eyes looked blank. Could it be? Merciless West's eyes suddenly twitched. Her body couldn't help but tremble violently. Secretly taking a deep breath, Su-yi raised his eyes and looked at the figures of the sacred mountain experts shrouded in light. His voice, mixed with vitality, continued. That's right. I, Su-yi, was once a disciple of the sacred mountain. His voice paused for a moment. Su-yi's eyes lit up, and he clenched his fist slightly. Boom! The whole place was in an uproar. Su-yi is really going to choose the sacred mountain. The crowd was in an uproar. Su-yi's words made many experts of the sacred mountain smile. There were also experts of the sacred mountain who had a complicated look in their eyes. But I've only almost become a disciple of the sacred mountain. I, Su-yi, have never set foot on the sacred mountain. I have never been a disciple of the sacred mountain. How can I be a disciple of the sacred mountain? His voice was like thunder. Su-yi clenched his fists. Suddenly, a red light surged in his eyes. An arrogant and evil aura swept out from his thin body. This arrogant and evil aura came from his bones and merged with the thin youth. I, Su-yi, have never been a disciple of the sacred mountain. I am proud of it. In this life, I, Su-yi, will never be a disciple of the sacred mountain. His words, mixed with vitality, rolled out word by word. It was deafening, like thunder in everyone's ears. When the powerhouses of the holy mountain heard Su-yi's words, their faces were filled with astonishment. The faces of Bing Cauldron and the sacred fire elder froze. The corners of their eyes twitched, and finally, coldness filled their eyes. Huh. The whole place changed color. Everyone's eyes couldn't help but twitch. What is this boy trying to do? The experts and elders of the Yutian Palace, Shenjian Gate, and the other 5 sects and 3 factions couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Su-yi's words were clearly provoking the sacred mountain. It was likely that the sacred mountain would not let him off today. Could it be that this boy wants to die? An expert whispered. At this time, Su-yi was still provoking the sacred mountain. No one could think of any other reason other than wanting to die. Good, huh? The word good was enunciated clearly. Then, deafening laughter came from the sacred fire elder's mouth and resounded across the sky. A blazing aura spread out from the void. Everyone could hear from the sacred fire elder's laughter that he was really angry at this moment. As a disciple of the sacred mountain, you killed a fellow disciple and betrayed the sect. You should be killed for this crime. When the laughter stopped, the sacred fire elder's face was gloomy. His eyes were filled with coldness as he stared straight at Su-yi. An invisible, blazing pressure suddenly pressed down on Su-yi. Boom! It was also at this moment that the Origin Supreme technique was activated in Su-yi's body. The mysterious ball of light in his mind and soul that had reacted before was once again affected. It emitted light, and a domineering and destructive aura spread out from within his body, dispelling and resisting the blazing pressure. Ha ha! Su-yi also laughed. He faced the sky and laughed. An invisible and domineering aura of destruction spread out from his thin figure. He took one step after another forward. Under this invisible and domineering aura of destruction, the surrounding void suddenly fell into a strange silence. Even the air seemed to have frozen. Su-yi's eyes were already filled with scarlet light. He looked up and swept his gaze across all the people of the sacred mountain present at this moment. A bone-piercing chill shot out from his eyes. Whoosh! The invisible chill and domineering destructive aura that could not be seen with the naked eye spread out from his body in the form of a wave of air, spreading in all directions. Chapter 859. Now that things had come to this point, He already knew that the sacred mountain would not let this matter rest. In the face of absolute strength, Yutian Palace and Shunjian Gate would not be able to protect him. Elder Suga, Palace Master Guyue, and the others were all seriously injured. This made Su even more clear. Refusing to join Yutian Palace, withdrawing from Shunjian Gate, and cutting ties with everyone else, Yi did not want to implicate anyone. These people were willing to protect him with their lives. This made Su Yi's heart tremble, and he was so touched that his eyes were wet. But how could Yi bear to implicate these people again? How could he let Elder Suruga, Palace Master Guyue, and the others risk their lives for him? Sacred Flame would probably not hold back anymore. If anything happened to Elder Suruga and the others, Yi would never forgive himself. He was still too weak. Compared to these experts of Sacred Mountain, the difference was still like an ant compared to an elephant. But Yi was not someone who was willing to submit. He and Sacred Mountain would not rest until one of them was dead. Today, there was no way out. Even if he could not win, he had to fight again. At least he still had a trump card. After dozens of steps, the smile disappeared. In Yi's hand, a broken sword suddenly appeared. The tip of the sword was stabbed into the ground. Yi coldly looked at Elder Sacred Flame and Ice Cauldron and said loudly, "Today, I, Yi, swear that I will one day step on a sacred mountain and kill those who owe me. If one person blocks me, I will kill one. If 100 people block me, I will kill 100 people. If all of them block me, I will wash Sacred Mountain with blood." Yi's voice reverberated from the collapsed golden boulder and fell clearly into the ears of many people. Huff! At this moment, there seemed to be a cold wind blowing through the square. Around the square, the spectators with low cultivation felt their hair stand on end. It was as if a chill had struck them, causing their blood to freeze. The nearby experts from Jutian Palace and Shunjian Gate felt their lips tremble. Everyone was frozen by this earth-shattering chill. This is killing intent. This brat actually hates our sacred mountain to this extent. What a terrifying killing intent. All the experts from the Holy Mountain also felt it, and their eyes twitched. This monstrous killing intent was bone-chilling and terrifying. Inside the ice cauldron, Elder Shenghua sensed the aura on Yi's body and the chill in his eyes. He suddenly had a bad premonition, and his eyes involuntarily trembled. The Sacred Flame Elder's heart shuddered. With his cultivation base, he was clearly suppressing the kid. Not to mention a level 1 Yuan Jin Realm cultivator, even a Yuan Void Realm cultivator would be paralyzed under the pressure of his aura. However, Yi was completely unaffected. Even at this moment, the invisible aura inside Yi's body was overbearing and destructive, and it made him feel uneasy for no reason. His intuition told him that Yi was indeed different from ordinary people. No wonder he could defeat Naren Ryu. How dare you, brat? You overestimate yourself. You killed a fellow disciple and betrayed the sect. You could be killed on the spot. Bing Cauldron opened his mouth, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Such a young man could not be owned by the Sacred Mountain, so he had to be killed to prevent future troubles. At the same level of cultivation, your Sacred Mountain is nothing in front of me. You only know how to bully the young. Ha ha. Yi laughed coldly. At the same level of cultivation, what was there to be afraid of? After laughing coldly, he pointed his sword at the low sky. His ragged robe fluttered slightly, and his black hair danced behind his back. His eyes were like red lightning. He stood proudly, and his thin figure stood straight. He said, "Today I have not lost anything. Killing one is not a loss. Killing two is a gain. Come and me together. What's there to be afraid of? If I don't die today, I will wash your sacred mountain with blood." Arrogant words, straight posture. At this moment, Yi was single-handedly challenging the group of experts from the Sacred Mountain. Such a scene, such a young man, made countless eyes uncontrollably twitch. At this moment, the young man was standing alone, and even under the pressure of the Sacred Mountain, he was still standing with his head held high. How magnificent How arrogant and conceited, how domineering and ferocious was that? He didn't give in. I knew he didn't give in. Sue, he won't give in. I knew it. I knew he wouldn't give in. Sue, he isn't that kind of person. In the crowd, Su Yi's followers couldn't help but murmur. Their blood boiled as they clenched their fists in excitement. They didn't misjudge him. This young man didn't give in. He was single-handedly challenging the group of experts from the Sacred Mountain. At this moment, there was an incomparable aura within that thin figure. That was their goal and idol. I understand now. He refused to join Yuqian Palace and left Xinjiang Gate. He didn't want the protection of Yuqian Palace and Xinjiang Gate. He didn't want to drag them down. What a good Su Yi. He knows the Sacred Mountain is too strong. He doesn't want to drag down Xinjiang Gate and Yuqian Palace. He's willing to face them alone. QG, the sounds of discussion grew louder and louder. More and more gazes began to burn with passion. Waves of passion surged out from their eyes. I knew Junior Marshal Uncle wasn't that kind of person. He didn't want to drag us down. That's why he left Xinjiang Gate. In the crowd, Sitamyang's eyes were wet as he clenched his fists. I knew it. That guy isn't that kind of person other than being lecherous. Gong Qi's beautiful eyes flickered, her vision a little blurred. What is this guy trying to do? The Sacred Mountain won't let him go. Jianxi, Ryugan River, Oluo, and the others trembled as they clenched their fists. Merciless West's eyes flickered with an unfathomable light. Xinjiang Gate has a good disciple. In the lineup of the 5 sects and 3 factions, some experts whispered and sighed. Bing Cauldron, Sacred Flame Elder, and the other experts from the Sacred Mountain looked more and more upset. Su Yi's words made the corners of their eyes twitch, and they lost face. Even Naren Ryu had been defeated by a disciple of the Sacred Mountain at the same level of cultivation, so no one present was a match for him. If they really took action today, they would really be labeled as bullying the young, but they definitely couldn't let this kid go today. You think you're talented enough to kill your fellow disciples and betray the sect? You deserve to be punished. Su, I'll ask you one last time. Will you go back to the Sacred Mountain to accept your punishment, or will you be punished on the spot? This is your last chance. Sacred Flame Elder said in a deep voice as the hot aura around him fluctuated. The invisible pressure froze the void and increased its strength to crush down. Boom! In Su Yi's body, the Origin Supreme technique was activated to the extreme, and the mysterious light ball in his mind was constantly spreading, resisting the pressure. However, the crushing pressure still made it difficult for Su Yi to breathe. His skin was burning and his legs were trembling. Chapter 860. Pointing his broken sword at the group of experts, Su Yi's lips curled into a sneer. His eyes were cold as he said arrogantly, "Old thing, you're too noisy. I've never been a member of the Sacred Mountain, so don't try to flatter yourself. If you want my life today, then bring it on. Killing 1 is breaking even, killing 2 is a win. Anyway, I've already made a profit, so why should I be afraid? Little bastard, you're just a Yuan Zhun stage cultivator, yet you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Don't you know that killing you is as easy as crushing an ant? Do you really think you could be compared to the Sacred Mountain alone?" Elder Shenghua was also angry. No one had ever dared to disrespect him like this. Even the other elders of the Sacred Mountain had to respect him. If it was outside, even the leaders of the 5 sects and 3 factions would have to be humble in front of him. But now, this kid actually dared to call him an old thing in front of him. How could he tolerate this? He had enough of being toyed with by this kid today. Murderous intent was already surging in his eyes. Boom! As soon as Sheng Hua's voice fell, the auras of the experts of the Sacred Mountain surged. Their faces were ashen as their auras locked onto Su Yi. Su Yi withdrew from the Xinjiang Gate because he didn't want to implicate the Xinjiang Gate. We can't let Su Yi go to the Sacred Mountain. Fight it out with them. Elder Mei Huaya said angrily. At this point, how could he not know that Su Yi withdrew from the Xinjiang Gate because he didn't want to implicate the Xinjiang Gate? Well, fight it out with them. Many experts and elders of the Xinjiang Gate said angrily. Their auras surged as they wanted to protect Su-yi. Su-yi doesn't want to implicate us. Translator, Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios, the eyes of Vice Palace Master Wanlan and the other experts of Juqian Palace also trembled as their auras fluctuated. Humph! Whoever dares to interfere in the affairs of the Sacred Mountain will be killed together. Sensing the auras of the people of the Xinjiang Gate and Yutian Palace, Elder Sheng was face twitched. He was completely enraged. If the Yutian Palace and Xinjiang Gate interfered today, he wouldn't be polite. Elder Su Kuanga waved his hand to stop Elder Mei Huaya and the others. On his old face, his eyes were shining. Palace Master Gu Yu's face was solemn, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. What a sacred mountain, bullying the young with the old, and bullying the young with numbers? At least I'm not afraid of death. A clear and serene voice spread out like a magnetic force. From the messy square in the distance, among a group of extraordinary young people, a handsome young man walked out. His white clothes were pure and clean, and his temperament was extraordinary. His eyes flickered with a brilliant light. His handsomeness was unmatched by anyone present, and it was enough to move any woman. Seeing this handsome young man walk out, many girls and beautiful women in the crowd cheered. Ripples appeared in their eyes. Yuan Qi flashed under Su Chen's feet. His figure was peerless, and he had an extraordinary temperament. Under everyone's astonished gazes, he jumped over the experts of the Yutian Palace and Xinjiang Gate and went straight to Su Yi's side. He smiled at Su Yi and said, "Don't be touched. I just can't stand a group of old things bullying the young." Looking at the dust in front of him, a light flashed in the depths of Su Yi's eyes. He then asked, "These old things are each more shameless than the last, each stronger than the last. We won't be a match for them, so why should we get involved? I'm not as strong as you. I've already given you the championship of the Sacred Martial Assembly, but you can't be the only one in the limelight today. Count me in." Su Chen still smiled at Sui. There was a slight smile at the corner of his mouth, and a trace of seriousness flashed through his eyes. "Since there's a brat who wants to die with me, I'll fulfill your wish today." Under everyone's watchful eyes, someone had actually ignored the sacred mountain and his warning and walked together with Su Yi. Moreover, it was a brat. This made the sacred flame elder's old face even more embarrassed. His heart twitched, and a cold light overflowed. "Old thing, don't talk big. I know you're strong, but if you want to take my life today, let's see if you have the ability." Hearing the sacred flame elder's words, Su Chen raised his eyes and grinned. Su Chen's words caused an uproar. No one had expected Su Chen to be so arrogant. He didn't even care in front of the sacred flame elder. Su Chen wants to fight side by side with Su Yi. Countless gazes in the mountains finally confirmed. At this time, there was still someone who wanted to help Su Yi and fight side by side with Su Yi. The coldness on the faces of the sacred flame elder, Bing Fu, and the others had already frozen. "Me too." Suddenly, another voice rang out from the crowd. The voice was a little timid, but it was incomparably firm. A figure also stepped out. The cloak that was originally tightly wrapped around his body had been greatly damaged. He looked to be about 16 or 17 years old. His face was also covered with many scales, and his veins were exposed, adding to his ferocious appearance. "It's him, Yin Lin." Such a young man was enough to attract countless disdainful gazes. However, when this young man walked out, countless gazes trembled and shock surged in their eyes. Yin Lin's performance in the Sacred Martial Assembly's top 8 had shocked everyone, proving his terrifying talent and strength. Yin Lin took 2 steps forward and directly arrived beside Su Yi and Su Chen. A bashful and honest smile rose on his face. "What are you doing here? These old things are not to be trifled with. Aren't you afraid of death?" Su Chen looked at Yin Lin and couldn't help but roll his eyes. He curled his lips and asked, "I'm afraid of death." Yin Lin nodded seriously at Su Chen. "Then do you still want to throw your life away?" Su Chen asked. Yin Lin looked at Su Chen and Su Yi with a resolute gaze, and a smile appeared on his face. "If I die, then I die. I can't let you deal with so many of them." We fought side by side before. You didn't mind my ugly appearance and never treated me as a beast man. If you die today, then no one will treat me as a friend. So, I might as well accompany you. If I die, then at least I'll have a companion. The elders in the village said that after people die, they go to the underworld. The journey there is cold and gloomy. If you have a companion, then it won't be cold and gloomy, and it will be more lively. Su Chen's eyes rippled as he looked at Yen Lin. Suddenly, he heavily patted Yen Lin's shoulder and said, "If anyone dares to call you ugly in the future, I, Su Chen, will be the first to not let them off. Hee hee, but I'm ugly to begin with." Yen Lin grinned. He smiled very happily. Su Yi's eyes were a little moist. Waves rose in his heart as he looked at the two young figures in front of him. He never thought that there would be two fellows willing to accompany him at this moment. We don't ask to be born on the same day, month, and year, but we ask to die on the same day, month, and year. If we break this vow, may the heavens strike us with lightning and thunder. Otherwise, do you think this old bag of bones is willing to be buried with you? Merciless West's voice paused. He took out a wine gourd and took a big gulp. He burped and threw the gourd to Su Yi. His sunken brown eyes rippled and surged with light. Maybe I'll die and take one last gulp. Ha! Even the flying general of Wulong City has the iron blood spear. He's a hero in the world and a hero in death. With you by my side, it's nothing. Su Yi smiled and drank a big gulp of wine. Merciless West's wine was naturally good wine. Then, Su Yi handed the gourd to Su Chen and asked, "Do you want a sip? My big brother's wine is not ordinary." "You're actually sworn brothers?" Su Chen looked at Su Yi and Shi Wuqing and was surprised that they didn't match. He took the wine gourd and took a big gulp without hesitation. Su Chen's eyes lit up as the wine entered his mouth. He couldn't help but say, "Good wine. Do you want a sip?" Su Chen handed the gourd to Yen Lin and said, "It's indeed good wine. It'll be a pity if you don't drink it." "Senior, can I have a sip?" Yen Lin received the wine gourd. However, he looked at Shi Wuqing and asked in a somewhat timid manner, "Ah, of course, I have more. Drink to your heart's content today." Merciless West smiled. She was thin but tall. When she smiled, the deep wrinkles on her neck folded together. Her loose robe fluttered in the wind, and her brown eyes shone. When Yen Lin heard this, he felt relieved and immediately drank a big mouthful of wine. Cough! Yen Lin coughed, and his face turned red. He was very surprised and handed the gourd back to Merciless West. He said, "What a spicy wine. I want to drink it too. It looks delicious." Little Handsome, Su couldn't help drooling. "Why are you drinking for a little bird? This is not for you." Merciless West patted Little Handsome Su's head and took the gourd. Everyone was stunned. In front of a group of Holy Mountain experts, these people actually turned a blind eye to them. They were even drinking and chatting merrily in front of the Holy Mountain experts. Did they not put the Holy Mountain in their eyes? The experts of the Sacred Mountain were also stunned. Even Elder Bing Cauldron and the Sacred Flame Elder were at a loss. "Let me introduce you all. This is my sworn brother, Merciless West." Su Yi looked at the people around him and smiled. He introduced Merciless West to Su Chen and Yen Lin. "I have an idea. Since we don't know if we'll live or die today, why don't we all become sworn brothers? Even if we die, let's die together. What do you all think?" Su Chen looked at Su Yi and Shi Wuqing and asked with great interest, "What do you think?" Together, Su Yi was stunned. Okay, I want to become sworn brothers too." Little Handsome, Su was very interested. He flapped his wings and his eyes flashed. "I'm fine with it as long as you don't dislike me." Yen Lin replied, his eyes shining. "Brother, what do you think?" Su Chen asked Merciless West. "Ha! I didn't expect that I, Merciless West, would be so lucky to become sworn brothers with you. I'm very happy." Chapter 862. At this moment, how could Merciless West not agree? He was an old man with half his body already in the mud, but these young geniuses didn't disdain him. He couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Then it's decided. Let's become sworn brothers. How about we go by age? I'm 20 this year. Suchin smiled. I'm 17 this year. Yin Lin seemed very excited. 17. Merciless West was also very shocked. Yin Lin was only 17, but he already had such strength. How could he not be terrifying? I'm 16 this year. I'll be 17 soon. He felt a bit wronged. It turned out that Yin Lin was a bit older than him. 16, but when he heard that he was only 16, Su Chun couldn't help but roll his eyes at Yi. This guy was already so terrifying at 16 years old. Thinking back to 4 years ago, he felt even more shocked. Then I can only take advantage of this old bag of bones. Merciless West smiled bitterly. I also want to become sworn brothers. I'm one this year. Little handsome Su flapped his wings anxiously, afraid that Yi wouldn't pull him along. This little bird is only 1 year old. Su Chun and Yin Lin were astonished. This bird that could talk was only 1 year old. All right, you two. Yi smiled. There was no harm in pulling this little fellow along. He then looked at the people around him. Emperor Heaven Hutu, today I, Yi, Merciless West, Little Handsome Su Chun, and Yin Lin are sworn brothers of the opposite sex. We will endure hardships together and enjoy blessings together. We don't ask to be born on the same day, month, and day, but we ask to die on the same day, month, and day. If anyone violates this oath, may lightning strike them and strike them with 5 bolts of lightning. In front of everyone's astonished gazes, Yi knelt on the ground. His broken sword fell to the ground. He didn't care about dying on the same day, month, and day. His voice reverberated in the air. Hutu, today I, the Merciless West, Yi, Little Handsome Su Chun, and Yin Lin, swear to be brothers of the opposite sex. We will endure hardships together and enjoy blessings together. We may not be born on the same day, month, and year, but we hope to die on the same day, month, and year. If we violate this oath, may we be struck by lightning and struck by lightning. Yi, Little Handsome Su, Merciless West, and Yin Lin are sworn brothers of the opposite sex. We will endure hardships together and enjoy blessings together. We may not be born in the same year, month, and day, but we will die in the same year, month, and day. If we violate this oath, may we be struck by lightning and struck by lightning. Voices that were infused with primordial chi soared into the clouds and reverberated in all directions. The entire place was silent for no reason. Countless gazes landed on these people at this moment, and they were all shocked. For silhouettes and a peculiar little bird, under the dazzling radiance of a group of experts on the sacred mountain, bowed to the heaven and earth to become sworn brothers. Their voices mixed with vital chi reverberated in the void. How frivolous and arrogant. They are swearing to be sworn brothers. They are not afraid of death, and they are not afraid of the sacred mountain. Too free and easy, too arrogant. Yi, Su Chun, and Yin Lin are 3 of the top 8 geniuses of the sacred martial assembly. They are swearing to be sworn brothers. If they don't die today, in the future, they will be the 3 strongest brothers in the entire Central Plains. I don't know why, but I feel like my blood is boiling. I don't know why either, but I feel like crying. Everyone was shocked, and their eyes trembled. Under the pressure of the sacred mountain experts, these silhouettes were fearless. Under the illumination of the sacred mountain experts, they bowed to the heaven and earth to become sworn brothers. How heroic! Young people are too impulsive, but this is what they call young people. Among the 5 sects and 3 factions, there were experts who couldn't help but feel waves in their hearts. Su Chun and Yin Lin were swearing to be Yi sworn brothers. It was undoubtedly unwise. Young people were too impulsive, but this also proved that they were young people. They were also young once, but at that time, they weren't as arrogant as they were now. Compared to them, these young people were far above them. In the distance, Xiao Jun, Chun Yinhuan, Lin Fan, Qi Tian Xian, and the others gazed at the silhouettes from afar. In this lifetime, I will never be able to compete with the three of them. This time, I accept my defeat wholeheartedly. Chi Tian, Xin whispered. At this moment, when he looked at the three young silhouettes, his eyes were filled with respect. He knew that in this lifetime, he would never be able to compete with the three of them. If I were alone, I would also want to be like them. Only then would I be able to live up to my arrogance. Xiaoxi Jun whispered. Her eyes were like whirlpools as she gazed at the three young people in the distance. Her eyes were filled with yearning, and her blood was boiling. If she didn't have the Beast Emperor's sect behind her, she would also want to be like them. But she couldn't. She had the Beast Emperor's sect behind her. In the air, the group of experts from the Sacred Mountain glanced at each other in dismay. Huh! Merciless West burst into laughter. He waved his sleeves and poured a cup of wine. Dong 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 dong. For people, and a bird cowed out. Su Xiao Shuai's little head was knocked on the ground so hard that the crowd couldn't help but laugh. But at this moment, nobody was laughing. Such a scene would only make their blood boil and hot tears flow. Mo, a big brother, second brother, third brother, fifth brother. After three kowtows, Su Yi stood up and looked at Merciless West, Su Chun, Yin Lin, and Su Xiao Shuai. His eyes were flickering with red lights. Big brother, third brother, fourth brother, fifth brother. Big brother, second brother, fifth brother. Su Chun and Yin Lin stood up and smiled. Their robes fluttered in the wind, and their hair danced in the wind. Ha 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 ha! I didn't expect that I, Merciless West, would have such good brothers like you in my life. The heavens are not unkind to me. Merciless West laughed and stood up. He raised his wine gourd and took a big gulp. An invisible aura fluctuated from his thin and tall figure. His loose robe fluttered in the wind. His brown eyes surged with light. He said heroically, "Drink, drink. Who can compete with us in this sacred martial assembly?" Ha! Su Chun took the wine gourd and took a big gulp. His white robe fluttered in the wind, and his eyes surged with lightning. Yin Lin didn't say anything. The scales on his body fluttered. At this moment, he didn't care about his appearance. He smiled foolishly and took a big gulp from the wine gourd. It's my turn. I want to drink too. Su Xiao Shuai fluttered his wings. Okay. He took the wine gourd and poured a mouthful for Su Xiao Shuai. Gulp. After a mouthful, Su Xiao Shuai's excited expression suddenly became a little strange. He opened his mouth and stuck out his tongue. So spicy. Why is this wine so spicy? Ha ha. Seeing Su Xiao Shuai's expression, everyone laughed. Gulp. He raised his head and gulped down the wine. The wine entered his throat and rushed to his body. He looked at Su Chun, Yin Lin, Merciless West, and Su Xiao Shuai. His eyes flashed with red lights. Su, he didn't let you down today. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.